Good morning. Welcome to the July 2013 meeting of the Federal Communications Commission. Madam Secretary, would you please introduce our agenda for the morning?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Good morning to you and good morning, Commissioners. Today's agenda includes 3 items for your consideration and 2 presentations. First, you will consider the 15th report on the status of competition in the market for the delivery of video programming. Second, you will hear a presentation on the bipartisan Leading Education by Advancing Digital, or LEAD, Commission's 5-point blueprint recommending a national initiative to expand digital learning in K-12 education. And you will hear how students and teachers at Kenmore Middle School in Arlington, Virginia are using digital technologies and broadband connectivity to expand learning opportunities. Followed by a notice of proposed rulemaking to modernize the schools and libraries' Universal Service Support Mechanism, or E-rate program, to support high-speed broadband for digital learning technologies and ensure all students, teachers, and library patrons have the tools they need to succeed in the 21st century. Fourth, you will consider a report and order addressing mandatory minimum standards applicable to the speech-to-speech relay program, and a further notice of proposed rulemaking seeking input on ways to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of this program. Last on your agenda, in recognition of the 23rd anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, you will hear a report on the Commission's implementation of the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act, or CVAA, since its passage in 2010. This is your agenda for today. The first item will be presented by the Media Bureau. Bill Lake, Chief of the Bureau, will give the introduction.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Good morning, Mr. Lake.
Good morning.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. We place before you the 15th report to Congress on the status of competition in the market for delivery of video programming. The 1992 Cable Act requires the Commission to report annually to Congress on the state of competition in video delivery. Congress and the Commission and others have come to rely on these reports to monitor the competitive environment and to assess the effects of regulation on competition. This report covers developments in the video marketplace during 2011 and 2012 and brings the Commission up to date on its reporting requirement. I would like to acknowledge and thank the many Media Bureau staff who helped to prepare this comprehensive report. They include Hillary DeNigro, Marcia Glauberman, Dan Bring, Johanna Thomas, Jake Ream, Erica Porter, Emily Burke, Dana Scherer, Ali Zayas, John Kiefer, John Gabrish, Sean Mirzadigan, Sean Yun, and Brendan Murray. Joining me at the table today are Hillary DeNigro, Chief of the Industry Analysis Division, Marcia Glauberman, Deputy Chief of that division, and Dan Bring, Senior Economist in that division. Dan will present the report.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. The Commission's 15th report to Congress looks at developments in the market for the delivery of video programming during 2011 and 2012. The report focuses on the entities that deliver video to consumers. We categorize these entities into 3 groups. The first group is multi-channel video programming distributors. The group includes over 1,000 cable companies, the 2 DBS companies, DirecTV and Dish Network, and telephone companies like Verizon and AT&T that have entered the video delivery market. The second group is broadcast television stations. And the third group is online video distributors like Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Hulu, as well as the websites of content providers, which include professional sports leagues. We describe each group's structure, business models, competitive strategies, and performance. We also summarize the regulations that apply to each group. We look upstream at video content creators and aggregators, and downstream at consumer behavior and consumer equipment. Some of the key trends since the last report include video programming distributors continue to replace analog technology with digital technology. More consumers have access to 4 multi-channel video providers. This trend continues to increase and now stands at over 35%. Competition continues to increase. DBS's share of multi-channel video subscribers has increased to 34%, and telephone MVPDs have over 9%, while cable share of the market continues to decline. Video programming distributors continue to offer consumers access to more video programming anywhere, anytime, on any device. The percentage of television households that rely exclusively on over-the-air broadcast service is 9.7%. Broadcasters have expanded the use of multicasting to provide more free video programming to consumers, including new networks and niche programming. There are over 4,500 multicast channels today. The number of online video distributors and the amount of online video content continue to increase. Consumers are increasingly viewing online video on their TVs. Approximately 35% of households watch online video on television sets. Consumers have responded to increased programming options by purchasing digital TVs, DVRs, tablets, and smartphones for storing and viewing video content. Over 74% of households have purchased digital TVs, and nearly 44% have DVRs. The Bureau recommends that the Commission adopt the 15th report and requests editorial privileges. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Breen, Mr. Lake, and team. We will now hear comments from the bench. Commissioner Rosenworcel.
Yesterday, the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences announced the nominees for the 65th Annual Primetime Television Awards. To be fair, the Emmy Award nominations have a bit more razzle-dazzle about them than the report before us. The Federal Communications Commission's 15th Annual Video Competition Report may have a lot going for it, but star power it lacks. Still, I think there is something instructive in the list of this year's Emmy Award nominees. It says something about the state of video, platforms for creativity, and content choices for viewers. The nominees spanned from programming on traditional commercial broadcast networks to public television, to cable channels, to new platforms like Netflix. What used to be a field limited to linear programming has now expanded. What was once an award featuring content only viewable in prime time now includes programming viewable at any time. Our report today tells a parallel tale. Traditional video models are still strong, but new ways of watching are gaining a toehold. As our data demonstrates, linear television still leads the pack, with the average American watching 34 hours and 7 minutes of programming every week. But the times are changing. We now typically watch 2 hours and 40 minutes of time-shifted television every week. On top of that, we view 40 minutes of internet video each week. This last category is only bound to grow now that more than a third of all households have a television connected to the internet, often through a gaming console. So what do we make of these trends? The ways we create, distribute, and consume content are changing. We are no longer limited to what is on. We look for video content when we want it, where we want it, on any screen handy. It is an exciting time with enhanced possibilities for consumers and creators. So thank you to the Media Bureau for this compendium of data on the state of video markets. And were there an award for Best Regulatory Report, I would nominate you for it now. What you have produced is smart, useful, and compelling. And that, I think, is something we should honor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Pye?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I, too, am pleased to support the Commission's 15th Video Competition Report. This report is quite comprehensive. Without appendices, it stands at 185 pages, and it contains a wide range of useful and interesting statistics. But when you take a step back from the blizzard of facts and figures, the report's principal lesson is simple and profound. Today, more Americans have more choices when it comes to video programming than ever before. They can watch a greater variety of programming than ever before. They can view that programming on a wider array of devices than ever before. And they have a greater ability to watch that programming when they want to watch it than ever before. All of this means that American consumers are reaping the benefits of competition and innovation in the video marketplace. While many fondly refer to the period between 1948 and 1959 as the golden age of television, there really is no time like the present for those who savor quality content. For instance, it used to be that the road from television to feature films was a one-way street for a successful actor. Today, however, it is increasingly common for film stars, and hopefully someday FCC commissioners, to move to television to find creatively challenging work. To give just a few examples, Kevin Spacey now stars in the Emmy-nominated Netflix drama House of Cards. Jessica Lange is featured in FX's Emmy-nominated American Horror Story. And Robin Williams will return to broadcast television this fall in CBS's The Crazy Ones. This report signals good news beyond the state of video competition. In July of 2012, we released the 14th iteration of this very report. Almost exactly 1 year later, we are adopting its successor. This means that we are fulfilling, almost to the letter, our statutory mandate to annually report to Congress on the status of competition in the market for the delivery of video programming. After a bit of a rough patch, it's great to see that we are back on track. And I commend Chairwoman Clyburn and her staff for their leadership in making that happen. And I thank all of the Media Bureau staff who worked tirelessly to produce this report. Hillary DeNegro, Marsha Glauberman, Dan Bring, Joanna Thomas, Jake Ream, Erica Porter, Emily Burke, Dana Scherer, Ali Zayas, John Kiefer, John Gabrish, Sean Merzadigan, Sean Yun, and Brendan Murray. The care and effort that all of you put in this report will be obvious to any who take the worthwhile time to read it. Thanks to all of you. And thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Commissioner. This comprehensive and timely report provides a useful snapshot of the video programming marketplace, and I am encouraged by some of the pro-consumer trends it reveals. Options for assessing video programming are swelling. Nearly all consumers have a choice among 3 multi-channel video program distributors, and today, more than 1/3 of all households can choose from 4 or more providers. Consumers can increasingly access content on a variety of devices that they own, such as tablets, video game systems, set-top boxes, and computers, and online video description is also thriving. In addition to allowing consumers to view video anywhere and anytime, these developments may also save consumers monthly on lease rates for equipment, as they are freed from renting set-top boxes. Indeed, all of these trends are leading to more choices in terms of programming packages and prices, and that is great for consumers. However, I am concerned because not all of our citizens are realizing the promise of these competitive benefits. Nearly 3 out of 10 rural Americans do not have access to high-speed internet that is sufficient to receive online video distributor services, and I sincerely hope that these consumers are not forgotten as these services become more popular and offer more extensive programming. In this regard, I note that broadcast TV remains one of the most affordable sources of entertainment and news. As the report shows, 11 million Americans still rely on free, over-the-air broadcast signals as their exclusive choice for TV viewing. And multicasting is bringing additional programming to consumers, including networks and programming targeting minorities and niche audiences. Special thanks are due to all of you in the Media Bureau who worked hard on this exhaustive report. But I would like to single out one particular person, and that's Marsha Gloverman. For today, you have worked on every competition report since 1995, and today I want to acknowledge you. I know that this report, like the previous ones you've worked on, will be a valuable public resource for information about the video marketplace. Thank you, Marsha, Hillary, Dan, William, and all the team. But special thanks to you for all of the hard work that you do. Unless there's any more discussion, we will proceed to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, so ordered. The request for editorial privileges is granted. Madam Secretary, if you would please announce our next item.
Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners, next on your agenda, Margaret Spellings, former Secretary of Education, and Jim Steyer, founder and CEO of Common Sense Media, will present on the bipartisan Leading Education by Advancing Digital, or LEAD, Commission's 5-point blueprint recommending a national initiative to expand digital learning in K-12 education. Additionally, Dr. John Word, principal of Kenmore Middle School in Arlington, Virginia, will share how students and teachers at Kenmore are using digital technologies and broadband connectivity to expand learning opportunities. Following the presentation, the Wireline Competition Bureau will present the item entitled Modernizing the E-Rate Program for Schools and Libraries.
Thank you very much, and welcome to our special guests. And Secretary Spelling, Mr. Steyer, and Dr. Ward, thank you so very much. And I think we will begin with you.
Thanks. First of all, Madam Chair and Commissioners Rosenworcel and Commissioner Pai, thank you very much for having us here today. This is a really big moment for us because we believe that your leadership in putting the E-rate notice of proposed rulemaking on today's Commission's meeting agenda is a pretty historic moment for kids in education in this country. I'm Jim Steyer, and along with my colleague, Margaret Spellings, and our other co-chairs, Jim Coulter, the founder and CEO of TPG Capital, and Lee Bollinger, the president of Columbia University. We are the co-chairs of the Leading Education by Advancing Digital Commission, which former Chair Janikowski and Education Secretary Arne Duncan called us to put together about a year ago to look at, quite frankly, the opportunities to transform the education system and the schools that your kids are going to be going to and my kids are going to right now through the appropriate and wise use of technology. And as a dad of 4 and a former classroom teacher, we really do believe, and I believe Secretary Spellings, who will speak in a second, will underscore that this is a revolutionary and transformational moment for America's kids in schools. You think about this. I'm a school teacher by training. I have taught in schools in New York, in the Bay Area, around the country, where there are 35 kids in a classroom, many of whom have other challenges that are not just what's going on for them in class. We now have an opportunity, using technology wisely, to create personalized learning for each of those kids in that classroom, to assess their progress. I mean, if we were going to sit here and I was going to give you 3 a math quiz right now, I'm sure you all have differing abilities. The great thing about some of the new educational technologies, we can actually assess your individual ability and how you're making progress and how all the other kids in a classroom were making progress. So we're at this transformational moment of truly giving our country a 21st century school system that we need. And a huge piece of that is going to be technology. And with digital textbooks, online learning, games, peer networks, we can actually help kids enjoy better lessons in school, do better in school, and ultimately build an economic future that all of us will benefit from. And I think that our experience at the LEAD Commission is that the biggest beneficiaries of all will be the kids in lower income neighborhoods, in lower performing schools, who will now have the opportunity to truly get the education that they deserve. Another great aspect of this is connecting parents. As with 4 kids of my own, I know how important their education is to me. And one of the great aspects of technology used wisely is we can bring parents up to speed with their kids' educational performance now. Link them in, link them to their teachers, link them to their kids. And this is just a remarkable time if used wisely. And in a second, I'll say why it's so important that we're here today. But, this is change as a teacher, and I know that John Word will reflect this as a school principal. This is just changing the way that we all teach today. I'm a professor at Stanford. I can't teach the same way that I did 5 or 10 years ago to those students, because they're all sitting there with their laptops or their tablets or their phones. And that's changed the way that learning occurs. So we need to, in a sense, bring our schools into the 21st century and make that possible. I went last month to Mooresville, North Carolina, which some of you have heard of as sort of the classic district in this country, which has demonstrated that wise use of technology and appropriate infrastructure development can revolutionize even the poorest school districts in this country. Mooresville being 100 out of 115th in terms of the districts in North Carolina in terms of dollars spent per student. It now ranks 3rd in test scores, 2nd in graduation rates. You talk to the teachers there, you talk to the students there, what you see is that the intelligent use of technology and the infrastructure that they've put in place there has transformed what was a mediocre at best school district into one of the real beacons, not just in North Carolina, but across the country. 300% increase in scholarships, an increase in graduation rates from 62 to 90%, academic proficiency going up from 64% to nearly 90%, decline in dropout rates, all the things we care about as educators, as Americans, and as parents. All of these things happening because of the wise use of technology. We can give you other examples around the country of schools, and Dr. Ward is here today to talk about how it's changing his school here in Arlington. But what we see is fundamental improvements in economic achievement. The other thing I'd mention, and my colleague Jim Coulter and Margaret and my colleague who testified in front of the Commerce Committee earlier this week, talked about the international issues here. Mr. Coulter and I went to Singapore, Korea, and China about 8 months ago and looked at their systems. And quite frankly, they're way ahead of us. Now, they have different systems, and they all look to our country as the innovation hub of the world. They all say that. But they've really done this. What they've done is they've put the infrastructure in place, they've put the teaching tools in place, and they've put the resources necessary to transform their systems. And we looked at it and thought, if we're going to continue to lead the world, not just educationally but economically, we have to compete. In a sense, we can't afford not to do what we're here to talk about today. And the LEAD Commission was formed a little over a year ago, as I mentioned, as a challenge from then Chairman Janikowski and Secretary Duncan to create a national roadmap. And we have a basic 5-point plan that I want to mention briefly before I turn it over to Secretary Spellings. The 5 points are relatively simple. The first is to solve the infrastructure challenge we face in this country, in our schools, by wiring every school, every classroom with high-speed broadband. That is what we're here to talk about today. There are 4 other elements to the plan that we've put forward to the country. First is put learning devices in the hands of every kid in this country by 2020. And quite frankly, we ought to be able to do that by 2016 if we really move on that. And that's going to be a private sector initiative. Much of this will be done by the market, will be done by the private sector. The third point we push on is the adoption of sophisticated digital curriculum that encourages innovation, because with the infrastructure and the devices, you need the content, and that's happening. Again, we believe the market will take care of that. We have to embrace and encourage model schools. That's our 4th point, because they'll be the pathways, the Mooresvilles, that'll give us examples. And finally, we have to train the teachers. We have to put in the kind of professional development resources necessary to take a Luddite like myself and turn me into a 21st century teacher. Because my kids know more about this, just like we all know this. Our kids know more about this stuff than we do. But we need to give them the tools to do it, and this body needs to help them have the infrastructure to make that possible in every classroom. We were saying, my colleagues have said, putting educators in a classroom today without a modernized E-rate program and with 20th century internet access is like putting firefighters in that we're seeing out in the West right now, trying to put that out with a garden hose. It's not going to happen. We need to give the kids the technology and the tools they need to succeed. And so your leadership in moving this forward on the Commission's agenda couldn't be more timely. It's a seminal moment, really, for kids in education. I think you will all look back at your tenure here on the Commission and remember what we are launching here today. And who better to talk to you about that than my friend and colleague, Margaret Spellings, the former Secretary of Education in the Bush administration and one of the great child advocates in this country.
Thank you, Jim.
Secretary Spellings.
Thank you all. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners, for welcoming us here today. We're thrilled to be here on something that we feel very strongly about. I'm thrilled to follow Jim. Thank you for that kind introduction, and pleased to discuss how technology can help equip our students educationally. I've spent nearly my entire career working on reforms to make education more innovative and responsive, to ensure that the U.S. education system is competitive on the international stage, and to provide every single young American with the knowledge and skills necessary to succeed, and I mean every single American. Let me begin by noting that the E-rate has been a success in doing what it was originally designed to do, and that is bring internet connectivity to our nation's schools. From 1996, when E-rate was first implemented, to 2004, the number of schools connected to the internet increased from 14% to 95%, as you all know well and as you all stewarded. The E-rate program has provided tremendous benefits to educators in rural and urban schools, public and private, and helped bridge the digital divide across America, not to mention the efforts that have taken hold in libraries. In 2008, towards the end of my tenure as Education Secretary, and along with then FCC Commissioner Chair Kevin Martin, we issued a report noting that as a result of the Commission's E-rate program, nearly 100% of schools and 94% of classrooms were connected to the internet. Yet, back then and today, the challenge has been to use this technology in a way that fully improves and harnesses its power to improve learning for students, to make personalized instruction available to each and every student and around each and every student's needs, and to improve, importantly, student achievement. That's why we're doing this. Indeed, for over a decade, I've been calling for E-rate reform to ensure that the program is updated and helping to move the needle for kids. And policymakers, encouragingly on both sides of the aisle, have called for modernizing this program. Folks like Governor Bob Wise of West Virginia, and my friend, former Governor Jeb Bush. The E-rate program should be updated to reflect the realities and needs of kids in schools today, and several key goals are important to this rulemaking process that is before you. The program should be aligned with today's technology, focusing on high-speed bandwidth. It should focus on supporting next-generation models, such as online and blended learning, that we have learned are so powerful and so effective for our students. It should be simplified to make it easier, much easier, for schools to access E-rate funds. It should be updated to align with current reform efforts in education, and there are many, and it should better connect to other technology efforts at the state and local level so that we can leverage other efforts to build a more cohesive system. As you know, technology has fundamentally improved so many aspects of our life. Ironically, however, despite our investments, affordable education technology has not been made available in our schoolhouses, has barely penetrated the walls of our schoolhouses. While we've done a good job of wiring our classrooms, we've yet to realize the full potential to transform the way education is defined and delivered so that students of all colors and all communities leave our schools ready to succeed in post-secondary education or the workforce. It's high time to balance the equation by using technology to amplify opportunity. New technologies, as Jim said, can help students access customized, interactive instruction anytime, anywhere, and at any pace, and can level the playing field for students regardless of location or socioeconomic status. It can transform the way teachers teach and the way students learn, and help educators use data in real time to improve learning. I think we often overlook the power to use this information to really improve and target and tailor instruction for kids. Though most of our schools are wired, they generally do not have high-speed bandwidth and technology. They need to use the state-of-the-art learning tools that are available. According to your own survey, 80% of schools and libraries do not have sufficient broadband to fully meet their current needs, and according to Education Superhighway, 83% have outdated Wi-Fi networks. Inadequate high-speed internet connectivity in the classrooms is the most immediate and expensive barrier to implementing technology in education. The centerpiece of solving this infrastructure challenge, of course, is the E-rate. Although the E-rate has been successful in bringing affordable telephony and basic broadband connectivity in the era of tablets and digital content, the connectivity provided under the current program is not sufficient. We need an E-rate program that supports learning that can happen anytime, anywhere. By reviewing how funds are currently used and how they could better be used in the future, you have an opportunity to make the current program more strategically targeted towards the needs of today's teachers and students. By updating the program, E-rate can provide the funding necessary to migrate our schools from the current inadequate bandwidth to high-speed broadband in a timely, efficient, and affordable manner. The effort to modernize E-rate and build the necessary infrastructure will take many years, but it must begin immediately. Simply put, the time for E-rate reform is now. 5 years ago, our blueprint, Leeds blueprint for digital learning, would have been prohibitively expensive, with $1,000 workstations, shrink-wrapped subpar software, torn-up walls in school buildings, lots of computers and closets. We've all seen that. Today, thanks to plummeting costs and innovative cloud-based software, enterprise Wi-Fi technology, and the like, implementation is affordable. Our plan is ambitious, but it is achievable, and it is an imperative for our students. 5 years from now, it will be too late. You have an historic opportunity to craft a modernized and strengthened program so current and future generations of American students can obtain the education and skills they need. Today, technology has transformed every area of life. Let's make sure that technology transforms the way our children learn and achieve. We look forward to working with you, other federal and state policymakers, educators, business leaders, and other stakeholders to support and implement these important reforms. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Word?
Good morning. As you've heard, I'm John Word, principal of Kenmore Middle School, which is just across the bridge over in Arlington, Virginia. Kenmore is Arlington's Arts and Communications Technology-focused school. Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners, I'm delighted to have an opportunity to sit at this table and participate in this discussion. Someone like me on the front lines, out there working every day with students. This is a learning experience for me, and I'm happy to be here and contribute any way that I can to this discussion on how and why the FCC should continue to support all schools and libraries in their quest to increase broadband, high-speed connectivity, and technology integration. I began my career in education as a social studies teacher at Thomas Stone High School in Waldorf, Maryland. I worked as a teacher, instructional supervisor, assistant principal, and principal with the District of Columbia Public Schools prior to serving in my current capacity. I want to acknowledge the work of this commission and its ongoing advocacy for technology integration in schools, and especially its role in getting schools connected. If my memory serves me well, there was not much, if any, noticeable technology in classrooms and schools when I began my teaching career in 1979. My first appointment as principal was in 1993 at Garnett-Patterson Middle School. When I was appointed principal, we embraced the theme, Communications Technology, the Link to the 21st Century. During those times, there was a great deal of excitement about the change of the millennium. There was a fair amount of anxiety about technology and our readiness to harness its power and stay competitive globally. While at Garnett-Patterson, I had the experience of being a part of some exciting projects. In those days, there were teams of techies that would come to schools on call and assists with the installation of internet cable. In 1993, we converted a typing classroom to a computer lab, installed computer labs on each of 3 floors, and added a distance learning classroom. We were one of the first schools in the system to have internet access. In 1998, I was appointed principal of Kenmore. One of my responsibilities was to continue a relatively new mission of integrating technology. Most educators agree that integrating technology is a powerful enhancement to teaching and learning. Sometimes schools don't have the training, hardware, software, and connectivity and accessibility necessary to realize the desired outcomes. During my tenure at Kenmore, we moved from a 50-year-old building to one that was designed with technology integration at its core. We are a wireless school community with a 3-to-1 student-to-computer ratio. All of our classrooms are equipped with smart boards, scanners, and 1/3 of them with audio enhancement systems. The goal of our district is to be 1-to-1 ratio by 2017. At our school, we have 6 computer labs, at least 2 computers in every classroom, 4 computers designed to facilitate the Read 180 program, 5 laptop carts, 4 iPad carts, a TV production studio, technology education lab, business education lab, family consumer sciences lab, and a distance learning lab. Last year, we provided every instructional staff member with an iPad. For the past 2 years, we participated in a state-funded iPads in Algebra project. Our algebra pass rate on the state test improved from 79% passing in 2012 to 94% passing in 2013. In Arlington, E-rate money has been used to support school infrastructure, which includes cabling for computers, wireless mobile devices, and telecommunications. For example, for the past 2 years, we have provided any family in need with a laptop. The E-rate money helped to provide the infrastructure that allows these families to have after-school hours internet access wirelessly at any APS school facilities, and including our libraries and recreation centers. We are hopeful that the E-rate funds will help us make our schools ready to support our expected 1-to-1 student ratio in the coming years and the growing numbers of faculty and students bringing their own devices on our campuses. Many of our students utilize internet-based enrichment programs like Scholastic's Read 180 and Think Through Math. Most students who invest in the prescribed number of hours on the Scholastic Read 180 program have shown remarkable gains in their reading scores as measured by Lexile growth on the Scholastic Reading Inventory, or SRI. Read 180 is a program that is designed for students who are reading 2 or more years below grade level. There are 5 components to the daily instruction, one of which is driven by instructional software. The class is taught in a daily 90-minute block with about 12 students. We use the program for identified students with disabilities. Most students who are enrolled in the program in 6th grade are able to return to fully integrated classes by the 8th grade. This kind of success builds a student's academic confidence. Likewise, we have a cohort of students who come to school early and spend time working on the Think Through Math enrichment program. These students are able to work on the program away from school if they have internet connectivity. All of the students who participated in Think Through Math saw improvements in their performance as measured by the state test. We are able to offer Chinese, Arabic, Latin, in a distance learning format. We would not be able to offer these classes if it were not for the use of the distance learning process. Our enrollment in foreign languages, which are high school credit-bearing classes, has increased, and I see a pattern of students studying native languages which heretofore were not available. The use and integration of technology has had a tremendous positive impact on our students and staff. One of our students came to our school from Bangladesh in 6th grade. By the time he completed 8th grade this year, he was designing web pages as a hobby and had been invited to serve on the Superintendent's Council for the Advancement of Technology. Last year, Kenmore pioneered a program called KidWind, an initiative to encourage green energy solutions through the design and construction of a functional scale windmill. Students printed over 50 different components using the 4 3D printers in the lab and assembled the entire windmill with snap-fit precision. 5 students traveled to James Madison University to compete against many other teams in the middle and high school division. Our students finished second overall in the state, and we look forward to multiple entries next year. This project was featured on the Channel 9 News. Our awareness of this national project was initiated as a result of internet connectivity. Some of these students had shown that they were academically strong, but had not found the connection at school to bring out the best of their talent. 2 years ago, we launched a laptop loaner program that targeted a group of boys who could earn a laptop by conducting community service and or earning good grades. Over 50 students earned their computers in almost no time. Additionally, any student who had demonstrated need was able to earn a laptop. Our 8th grade geography students used technology integration to create geo-jingles. Those are student-created songs about regions of the world. I heard a student comment that by doing this project, she felt included and important in the learning process. We have 2 teachers who have been named SMART Exemplary Educators. This entitles them to an array of support materials such as smart boards, student response systems, and opportunities to showcase their skills with colleagues locally and nationally. These experiences have transformed their teaching. One is on track to become a math coach, and the other is slated to lead a revolutionary collaborative classroom this year. Our technology education teacher who led the KidWind project inspires and leaves most who watch his work with students in awe. This year, our district is in the process of making a change in the student information management system. One of the highlights of the new system is its accessibility for parents and students to connect digitally. Parents and students will be able to see upcoming lessons and grades in live time. Unlike the classroom that I inherited at the start of my career, we have just installed a collaborative classroom that has 4 smart boards and a 50-inch touchscreen TV. As a result of the connectivity that we enjoy today, our school is a place where our teachers and students are interacting with limitless constituents, with endless possibilities, and always display the joy of learning on their faces. I want to thank you all for the work that you've done on behalf of schools and libraries across the country, and for organizing this program so that all schools and libraries can benefit from your insight and work to increase broadband access and technology integration. This is powerful and transformative work, and I commend you for your commitment and encourage your persistence. Thank you.
Dr. Word, Professor Steyer, Secretary Spellings, thank you so much for your recommendations, your challenges, your remarkable service to this nation, and yes, for joining us to hear. I heard a couple of you gave up some vacation time. We really appreciate it, and hopefully I know it will be all worth it. And to reaffirm that, we will hear now from our Wireline Competition Bureau. Ms. Beach?
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners, and if I may echo your thanks to Dr. Word, Professor Steyer, and Secretary Spellings for being here and for their tireless efforts in this area. The Wireline Competition Bureau is very pleased to present you with a notice of proposed rulemaking to update and modernize the E-rate program. For almost 15 years, the E-rate program has provided financial support to schools and libraries in every state and territory in our country to assist them in securing affordable telecommunications, internet access, and related services. Thanks in large part to the E-rate program, internet connectivity has expanded the educational opportunities for children and provided Americans who might be unserved at home with access to important online tools at their local libraries. Building on this success, The notice initiates a comprehensive review and modernization of the E-rate program to ensure that our schools and libraries can provide access to all of the ever-increasing number of educational opportunities made possible by the deployment and use of high-capacity broadband both to and within buildings. The reforms discussed in this notice were developed and refined in coordination with the Commission's Office of Strategic Planning, the Office of General Counsel, the Office of the Managing Director, the Office of Native Affairs and Policy, and the Enforcement Bureau. We thank them all for their collaboration and gracious support. In addition to those at the table with me, I'd like to thank the members of the team for their contributions on this important notice. James Bachtel, Regina Brown, Brian Boyle, Sumitra Das, Chaz Eberly, Erica Myers, Mark Nadel, Anita Pontonkar-Stoll, David Strickland, and Michael Steffen, the agency's Director of Digital Learning. Seated with me at the table are Associate Bureau Chief Trent Harkrader, and from our Telecommunications Access Policy Division, Chief Kim Scardino, Deputy Chief Lisa Hone, and Attorney Advisor Kara Voth, who will present the notice. Kara?
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. When Congress passed the Telecommunications Act of 1996, authorizing the creation of the E-rate program, only 14% of classrooms had access to the Internet, and most schools with Internet access used dial-up. Now, virtually all schools and libraries are connected to the Internet, most with support from the E-rate program. 3 years ago, the Commission implemented the first stage of E-rate reform in response to recommendations made in the National Broadband Plan. Today's notice takes steps to build on those reforms and further modernize E-rate to meet the challenge of ensuring that schools and libraries have the broadband capacity they need to keep pace with current educational demands and available resources. In schools, cutting-edge technological tools and content can transform learning by helping teachers customize their lessons and can offer analytics that provide students, their teachers, and their parents real-time information about student performance. Also, interactive and collaborative distance learning can provide all students, from rural communities to inner cities, access to high-quality courses and expert instruction. In libraries, broadband access to interactive platforms can transform lives by helping library patrons build skills, seek employment, and provide the tools they need for lifelong learning. But many of these advanced applications and technological tools are bandwidth intensive and therefore are not available to schools and libraries if they cannot afford the high-capacity broadband needed to support access. Thus, this notice makes proposals for adjusting the E-rate program so that it can play a crucial role in helping schools and libraries meet their current and future needs for high-speed broadband. The notice proposes 3 important goals for a modernized E-rate program. First, ensure schools and libraries have affordable access to 21st century broadband that supports digital learning. Second, maximize the cost effectiveness of E-rate purchases. And third, streamline program administration. The notice seeks comment on how to measure our progress towards each goal. For example, the notice seeks comment on the broadband target set forth in President Obama's Connect Ed initiative. That initiative calls for next-generation broadband and high-speed wireless connectivity to and within schools, serving 99% of our nation's students within 5 years. The notice also seeks comment on the best methods to collect accurate, relevant, and timely data about the program. Data will help us track our progress towards meeting the proposed goals and guide our continuing efforts to improve the program. Next, the notice explores options for accomplishing each of the proposed goals. The notice proposes shifting the E-rate program's funding priorities to better focus funds on school and library access to high-capacity broadband and seeks public comment on different ways to reprioritize E-rate funding. In addition, the notice proposes to update the list of services eligible for support and inquires about the most efficient technological architectures for schools and libraries. The notice also seeks comment on how to more equitably distribute E-rate funds and on innovative approaches for lowering the cost of deploying high-capacity broadband to schools and libraries. The notice asks about ways that we can encourage smarter spending in the program. It seeks comment on how to drive down prices for E-rate supported services through some combination of increasing consortium purchasing, bulk buying, and pricing transparency, and improving the competitive bidding process. And as always, we are focused on improving the administration of the program. The notice seeks comment on how to make the program run more smoothly through electronic filing of all FCC forms, improvements in the E-rate application and review processes, simplification of the list of services eligible for E-rate support, and a streamlined appeals process. Finally, the notice seeks input on several issues that have been raised by E-rate participants. These include the applicability of the Children's Internet Protection Act to certain devices, changes to the National School Lunch Program, additional fraud protection measures, the use of E-rate supported services for community Wi-Fi hotspots, and new E-rate program procedures to address natural disasters and other national emergencies. This ambitious notice will begin to chart the course for an E-rate program for our nation now and in the future. The Bureau recommends adoption of the notice and requests editorial privileges. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bob. Now we'll hear comments from the bench. Commissioner Rosenworcel.
This is big because here comes E-rate 2.0. Over the last several months, I've had the opportunity to talk about the E-rate program at length with teachers, librarians, superintendents, school administrators, education technology providers, network engineers, device manufacturers, and content creators. They obviously have different interests. They spend their days in everything from classrooms to cubicles to corner offices. They work with different educational systems in different communities across the country. But they have one thing in common. They believe in the power of E-rate to bring connectivity to our nation's schools and libraries. They believe it is absolutely essential for digital age opportunity and digital age success. I agree. E-rate is the nation's largest education technology program. Launched 17 years ago through the vision and leadership of Senator Jay Rockefeller, Senator Olympia Snowe, and then Congressman, now Senator Ed Markey, E-rate has helped connect more than 95% of classrooms to the Internet. And that's impressive. But it's been my experience that laurels are not good resting places, because we are quickly moving from a world where what matters is connectivity to what matters is capacity. Already, year in and year out, the demand for E-rate support is double the roughly $2.3 billion that this commission now makes available annually. Moreover, as we've heard, this agency's own survey indicates that 80% of schools and libraries believe that their broadband connections do not meet their current needs. So let's be honest. Those needs are only going to grow. School administrators are facing tough choices about limited bandwidth in the classroom, how to divvy it up, what grades and classrooms get it, and what programs they can run on it. This means without adequate capacity, our students are going to fall short. They will be unable to realize the full potential of digital learning. That's a serious problem. But this is not just a matter of getting schools and libraries connected. It's a matter of our global competitiveness. Welcome to the world that is flat. Knowledge, jobs, and capital are going to migrate to places where workers have digital age skills, especially those in science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM fields. In fact, the Bureau of Labor Statistics tells us that here at home, over the next 5 years, we will have over 1 million STEM-related job openings. STEM jobs are growing at a rate 3 times faster than all other occupations. And even opportunities outside of STEM will be increasingly digitized, and students will need technology skills to become competitive in the worldwide workforce. But we fail our students if we expect digital age learning to take place at near dial-up speeds. A recent Harris survey found that roughly half of E-rate schools access the internet at speeds of 3 megabits or less. That is not enough for the most innovative teaching tools. Add to this that in the United States, out of 42,000 high schools, only 2,100, or 5%, offer consumer computer science courses. So let's contrast this with efforts underway in some of our world neighbors. They are pouring resources into these subjects, into schools, and into connectivity. For example, in Singapore, 100% of schools are wired with high-speed broadband. In South Korea, 100% of schools are also connected to high-speed broadband. With so much capacity, an effort is underway to transition all students from traditional textbooks to digital readers in 2016. In Uruguay, through a national program, nearly all primary and secondary schools have been connected, and every primary school student has a free laptop. Uruguay has also revamped its secondary school science and math curricula, adding robotics and national math competitions. In Turkey, the Prime Minister is seeking a provider to supply 10 million tablets to Turkish students by 2015. In Thailand, the government has established a 1 tablet per child policy in an effort to reduce the education gap between the nation's urban and rural children. By the end of next year, the government will have distributed devices to 13 million school children. So for now, we can recognize that these countries are smaller than the United States. They have different cultures. They have different education systems. But we can still take from these examples that improving broadband capacity to schools for digital age learning must be a national priority. If we fracture this effort and leave it to every local school jurisdiction, we will miss opportunities for scale and savings. Yet in the end, the point is a simple one. Access to adequate broadband is not a luxury, it's a necessity for the next generation to be able to compete. Just like in my day, you wouldn't have a classroom without a blackboard. Today, we shouldn't have a classroom without broadband. So we are at a crossroads. We have a choice. We can wait and see where the status quo takes us and let other nations lead the way. Or we can choose a future where all American students have the opportunity to gain the skills they need to compete, no matter who they are, where they live, or where they go to school. For my part, I believe it's time to compete. So I am pleased that today we begin this process with this rulemaking. In keeping with our tradition here at the FCC, this document is comprehensive. It reflects the diligent work of many dedicated lawyers. It covers a lot of important issues. But there are 2 issues I believe deserve our immediate focus if we want to see E-Rate 2.0 up and running fast. We need to focus on setting capacity goals, and we need to focus on simplifying the application process. First, E-Rate 2.0 must be built on clear capacity goals. The fact that we have connected so many schools and libraries to the internet is good, but the job is not done. A recent survey from Project Tomorrow tells us that only 15% of schools believe they have the bandwidth they need for instructional purposes. It means they are unable to use the most up-to-date education materials. We can fix this with capacity goals. Furthermore, capacity goals will signal to markets that the United States is serious about making digital education a priority. This will yield more opportunities through greater scale for new services, teaching tools, and devices everywhere. We can use them to facilitate public-private partnership opportunities that will bring education-enhancing technology to classrooms and communities across the country. Today's rulemaking sets out some capacity goals that I have proposed in the past and fully support. By the 2015 school year, every school should have access to 100 megabits per 1,000 students. Before the end of the decade, every school should have access to 1 gigabit per 1,000 students. Libraries, too, will need access on par with these capacity goals. And this provides more than just scale for content and device providers, because the spillover effect for this kind of broadband in local communities is substantial. Building gigabit capacity to anchor institutions like schools and libraries is the ticket to gigabit cities and the ticket to digital education and economic growth. To get to these goals, we need to take a hard look at the existing program. We need to collect better data from each of our applicants about what capacity they have and what capacity they need. Then I think we can make adjustments to how we prioritize funding to ensure that schools shorter on capacity get greater access to support. As part of this hard look, we should phase down the estimated $600 million we currently spend on outdated services like paging and free up those funds for more high-capacity broadband. But growing this program is about growing national infrastructure and enhancing educational opportunity for the next generation. It is a conversation we need to have because it is where we need to invest right now. Second, we need ideas from stakeholders far and wide about how to simplify the application process. I can tell you from my experiences speaking about E-rate during the last several months that nothing gets applause like the promise of simplifying the process. I hope we can take a fresh look at how the complexity of our existing process can deter small and often rural schools from applying. To this end, in our rulemaking, we ask about the feasibility of multi-year applications. This could substantially reduce paperwork and administrative expense. We also ask how to encourage greater use of consortia applications. This could mean greater scale and more cost-effective purchasing. I think these are good ideas, and we should be open to others, especially from those who know the challenge of filling out these forms year in and year out. As we move forward with our rulemaking, I think E-rate 2.0 requires us to think big and reach beyond Washington. We need to hear from educators and technology experts on the front lines in classrooms across the country. Because as President Obama put it in Mooresville, North Carolina last month, we are at a moment when the rest of the world is trying to out-educate us. But it is within our reach to make sure that our young people have every tool they need to go as far as their talents and dreams and ambitions and hard work will take them. So, let's do something audacious. Let's start a revolution. Let's seize the powerful combination of broadband, plummeting device costs, and increasing opportunity for cloud-based educational content. Call it ConnectEd, call it E-rate 2.0, but let's do it. So thank you to the Wireline Competition Bureau for your hard work on this rulemaking. Thank you to Professor Steyer, Secretary Spellings, and the Lead Commission for fostering an important national conversation about the seismic shifts coming to education and technology. Thank you also to Dr. John Word for your powerful statement today and your work with students every day. And I'm hoping we might be able to plan a field trip in the fall. Finally, thank you to Chairwoman Clyburn and Commissioner Pai for engaging with me on this issue. I look forward to working together to reboot, reinvigorate, and recharge the E-rate program.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Pai?
Well, thank you, Chairwoman Clyburn. Before I begin, I also want to thank our guests, Professor Steyer, Secretary Spellings, and Principal Word for your presence. I think your passion and your expertise have given a much richer flavor to the topic we're discussing today. And both today and all days, we are grateful for your service on behalf of America's school children. 16 years ago, the FCC established the Schools and Libraries Universal Support Mechanism, thankfully shortened to the E-rate program, to bring advanced services to schools and libraries across America. In many ways, as Professor Steyers and Secretary Spellings have pointed out, and as Principal Word's work exemplifies, E-rate has been a success. Internet access in public schools has almost tripled since E-rate's creation, and speeds have grown alongside availability. Today, schools across this country depend on E-rate for connectivity. Now, like all federal programs, E-rate has had its share of difficulties. Most of these problems stem from the program's complexity and lack of transparency. The application process is too complicated for some schools and libraries. Some give up and don't bother to apply. Others apply but get tangled in red tape and don't receive their money, in some cases until a decade later. The complicated scheme for distributing funds causes many other challenges. Money isn't distributed fairly among schools. Schools with higher discounts stand at the front of the funding line and have an incentive to overspend, leaving less for everybody else. And funds for such things as paging and long-distance telephone calls and bandwidth to bus garages are given priority over funds for connecting classrooms. Meanwhile, we at the FCC can't always get enough information to oversee the program. 3 years ago, the National Broadband Plan observed that the Commission doesn't have the means to identify, quote, the different types or capacities of broadband services that are supported through the E-rate program. In other words, we can see the forest, say, whether funds were spent on telecommunications services or basic maintenance, but we can't always see the trees when it comes to specific schools and particular spending practices. In short, as the E-rate program has evolved over the past several years, we have sometimes lost sight of what's important. A program meant to help kids has instead often become too heavily focused on bureaucracy. But that's not how it has to be. This morning, we begin the process of revitalizing and revamping E-rate. I'm excited to support today's Notice of Proposed Rulemaking because it seeks comment on a wide variety of ideas that hold the potential to transform this critical program. Earlier this week, I shared my vision for a student-centered E-rate program at the American Enterprise Institute. I'm very grateful to Chairwoman Clyburn and Commissioner Rosenworcel for agreeing to seek comment in this item on the plan that I outlined. Now you might ask, what is that plan? Well, for those of you without the stamina and who rationally don't want to listen to a 40-minute presentation, here's the abridged version. In order to create a student-centered E-rate program, I think that we need to do 4 things. First, we need to simplify the application process. Let's make it easy for all schools and libraries to apply for the program. Under my plan, they would only need to fill out 2 forms, and the initial application form would only need to be 1 page. Less red tape means fewer delays and more predictability. Schools also wouldn't need to rely so heavily on outside help during the funding process, which would mean more money that they could ultimately spend on school children. Second, we need to focus funding on next-generation technologies for kids. Connecting classrooms should no longer be the program's subordinate priority. Let's retire the current Priority 1, Priority 2 system. Place all eligible services on one consolidated menu, and let local schools pick the services that best meet local needs. That also means no more funding for standalone telephone service. In the last few years, the program has committed about $600 million annually to voice telephony services, more than a quarter of its annual budget. But in 2013, E-rate should be about funding next-generation infrastructure that will facilitate the kind of digital learning that our guests have highlighted, not subsidizing long-distance telephone calls. While states and localities are, of course, free to spend money on those priorities, when it comes to federal funds, schools should be focusing on connecting kids in the classroom. Congress itself, in my view, demanded as much when it instructed in the Telecommunications Act of 1996 that the E-rate program should be focused on providing advanced telecommunications services to schools and libraries. In the modern day, advanced means broadband. Third, we need to distribute E-rate funding more fairly. As the current program stands, the savviest of schools can often walk away with the lion's share of funding, while other school students attending other needy schools that also need funding are deprived year after year. We need to sunset the complicated discount matrix that distributes money in a somewhat haphazard fashion and replace it with a simple student-centered program. Each school should get funding based on the number of students that it has. Rural students should receive more money than urban students. Low-income students should receive more money than their wealthier counterparts. And when kids change schools, they should take their funding allocation with them. The money should follow the child. In line with recent reforms to the Rural Healthcare Connect Fund, we should also institute a 3-to-1 matching requirement for local schools. That is, for every $3 provided by E-rate, the local school should be required to spend $1. With real skin in the game and a school-by-school budget, we will encourage more prudent spending. Now, if we switch to a simplified allocation approach, some might wonder how very small schools or schools in remote areas would fare. Let me be clear. I believe that universal service means what it says, service for everyone. Its promise extends from city schools with thousands of students to villages in northern Alaska with just a few. And that's why my plan includes a funding floor for small schools and extra money for schools in remote areas. Indeed, a student-centered E-rate program would treat rural America far better than the status quo. In 2011, for example, South Dakota received 30% less E-rate funding per student than New Jersey, despite the fact that South Dakota is far more rural and has a higher poverty rate than New Jersey. That would change under my plan. Fourth and finally, we need to increase transparency. By publishing all funding and spending decisions on a centralized, easy-to-access website, we could allow anyone to check on how any school in America was spending its federal funds. That empowers the whole community, school board members, parents, journalists, and government watchdogs to be involved in effective oversight, and that will help make sure that money is being used to help kids. This student-centered program would fulfill the E-rate's statutory mission of bringing advanced services to schools and libraries across this country, and it would do all of this without collecting an extra dime. Now, on that last point, I should say a word about the size of the E-rate program. We should be mindful that expanding the program is not the same as reform. Instead, what would make for a new E-rate program is some old-fashioned fiscal responsibility. For instance, each year we have literally hundreds of millions of dollars available for the E-rate program that don't go out the door. We don't spend those dollars. Last year it was over $800 million. As a result of what I've called the red tape funding gap, billions have been collected from the American people and have been sitting in the E-rate account, in some cases for years. And we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on outdated services, as I discussed earlier. If we simplify the program and focus on the right priorities, we can do a lot more with the money we are already collecting. Indeed, under the first year of my plan, we should be able to spend $1 billion more money from the on next generation technology from kids without collecting more money from the American people. And as we debate expanding the program's budget, let's also remember this. The Universal Service Fund's contribution factor has already increased from 9.5% to 15.1% in just the last 4 years. That's an increase of almost 60%. Over that same period, as many of us know, median household income has fallen. We cannot ask American consumers to bear an even heavier burden when they pay their monthly phone bills, especially when well-considered structural reforms would obviate the need for us to pose the question. As Commissioner Rosenworcel observed, we stand this morning at a crossroads with respect to the future of the E-rate program. And to help us decide which way to go, today's NPRM tees up a number of fundamental questions. Will we simplify the application process? Will we provide flexibility so that different communities can meet their different needs? Will we rectify the unfair distribution of E-rate funding? Will we end the incentives for wasteful spending? Will we practice fiscal responsibility and use more wisely the funds that we are already collecting? Will we measure educational outcomes and performance, as Principal Word has done, in order to better manage the program? In short, will we be creative and bold? My approach is to embrace the spirit of our 35th president. To borrow from President Kennedy, we should answer yes to each of these questions. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because the goal of linking technology and education will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one that we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win. When it comes to our children's education, we should not be afraid of the hard choices. We should shoot for the moon. We should not tinker around the edges, and we should aim to win. If we receive the input we need from educators, librarians, parents, and service providers, and if we make the right choices, a student-centered E-rate program is within our grasp. I hope we can make it happen by the time our children return to school in the fall of 2014. Now, this proposed rulemaking is a major undertaking, and it would not have been possible without the excellent work by our staff in the Wireline Competition Bureau. Thanks to Julie, Kara, Trent, Lisa, Kim, and all of the staff in the Bureau for all of your hard work on administering the E-rate program, and especially for drafting this item. I'd like to conclude by sharing an email that I received on Wednesday from an IT specialist for a rural California school district after I introduced my proposals. She expressed her support and she told me, I quote, "Minimizing the complexity of the process as well as increasing the flexibility of how the funds are spent will make such a big difference to all students." That's exactly what our goal should be in this endeavor, to make a difference for our kids. As Secretary Spellings said, improving student achievement is why we are doing this. And that's why I look forward to working together with all of you, my FCC colleagues and administrators, teachers and technologists, parents and others, to put in place a student-centered E-rate program. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Commissioner. This is a pivotal moment. As we've heard from Secretary Spellings, Professor Steyer, and Dr. Word, technology has the power to revolutionize education in America. But we are not where we need to be, both relative to other nations and to the rate of technology adoption in this nation. And one of the biggest obstacles to seizing the opportunities of digital learning in America is inadequate bandwidth at our schools and libraries. Simply put, they need faster, high-capacity connections, and they need them now. Today, however, we take an important step toward ensuring that our schools and libraries have the bandwidth they need. We launch a modernization of E-rate that the times demand and our children deserve. E-rate is one of the FCC's biggest success stories. This public-private partnership has helped connect nearly every U.S. library and school to the Internet. This includes places like Kenmore Middle School in Arlington, which I visited about 2 years ago. That is where I first met Dr. Word and saw some of the amazing things he and his staff, like Michael, are doing and have achieved. It also includes schools like Loris Elementary in my hometown of South Carolina. You've heard a bit about Kenmore, so let me tell you a little bit more about Loris. It is a town of about 2,400 people, almost half of whom live in poverty. But the local elementary school is using technology to help their children rise above these circumstances. Every student in grades 3 through 5 has been assigned a laptop loaded with learning software. Teachers are using digital tools to assess each student's progress in real time and offer differentiated instruction to meet each student's individual needs. Now test scores are up, and in state rankings of similar schools, Loris Elementary rose from 41st into the top 20. Places like Kenmore and Loris Elementary remind us that broadband has the potential to be the great equalizer for our children. It doesn't matter whether you live in a rural, low-income area or in a wealthy urban community. Connecting a child to the Internet links them to cutting-edge instruction and new learning opportunities. Our goal should be to make this the rule and not the exception. We also need to ensure similar advances for libraries. These reference centers are key pieces of the overall education picture because they support kindergarten through 12th grade students after hours with online research resources, interactive online homework help, and digital learning labs. They also support homeschool students, distant learners, GED preparation and test taking, job retraining, and other lifelong learning. Libraries are the civic hubs for the information age, providing the public with digital literacy training and free internet access so community members may apply for jobs, learn new skills, and access critical government resources. While E-Rate has made a significant impact on connectivity for schools and libraries over the past 15 years, today's cutting-edge educational tools and learning platforms were not a part of the landscape when the Commission first implemented this congressional directive. As educators increasingly integrate digital content into their lesson plans, faster speeds and additional capacity are needed to accommodate all of the interactive educational uses that Internet offers. Although some schools have sufficient capacity to implement digital learning tools and strategies, too many do not. In fact, in a 2010 FCC survey of schools and their districts, nearly half of the respondents reported lower speed internet connectivity than the average American home. Similarly, 41% of libraries reported that their connectivity was inadequate to meet patron demands in 2012, and fewer than 10% of American libraries offer internet speeds of 100 megabits or faster. This is simply not good enough. We must ensure that our young people, teachers, and the millions of citizens that use libraries each year have access to the tools they need to compete and succeed in the digital age. We need to do this for our children, and we need to do this for our nation. The U.S. will fall behind in the 21st century economy if our classrooms don't evolve beyond a 19th century model. Last month, as we know, President Obama went to Mooresville High School in North Carolina and issued a call for action to close our education system's bandwidth deficit. He announced his Connect and Ed initiative and called on the FCC to bring high-speed internet to 99% of the U.S. students within 5 years. Answering the president's call will require modernizing E-Rate. Fortunately, the Commission began the process of updating E-Rate back in 2010, starting with recommendations outlined in the National Broadband Plan to cut red tape and give schools and libraries flexibility to get higher capacity and more cost-effective broadband services. But now is the time for a more significant revamp. Once again, we will roll up our sleeves and do what it takes to ensure that our nation's schools and libraries have the broadband connections needed to meet their current and future requirements. This item is the first critical step. Today we propose clear goals and seek comment on a variety of options for modernizing E-Rate. This item advocates providing our schools and libraries with affordable access to high-capacity broadband, maximizing the cost-effectiveness of purchases, and ensuring the administrative efficiency of E-Rate. It also explores how to get better data and how to use that data to make the best use of the E-Rate funds. It inquires about the best ways to distribute funding fairly and considers phasing out support for outdated services and using any savings toward investments in more bandwidth. The questions posed offer a starting point from which schools and libraries, state and local officials, and all interested stakeholders can share their views with the Commission. We look forward to this conversation and the leveraging of their knowledge and investments in order to establish the foundation for real, positive change in our classrooms and libraries. I join my colleagues in calling on all stakeholders to work cooperatively to ensure that the culmination of our efforts will be the beginning of a modernized E-rate program that fulfills its promise to our nation's children and library patrons. As I close, I wish to again thank Secretary Spellings and Professor Steyer for joining us today and for all of your work over the past 16 months. The LEAD Commission's blueprint embodies serious thinking about opportunities education technologies put within the grasp of our nation's children and teachers, and how we can seize those opportunities as a nation. Dr. Word, thank you for all that you do each and every day. I often think when I have a hard job, maybe not so much. I think about people like you, my father, who was a former history teacher, and my sister, a middle school teacher in Columbia, South Carolina. You all have the really hard job. 700 kids each and every day. Dr. Word, we owe you so much. And many thanks to all of you for coming by on one of your few days off. And thank you for all of the supporters of E-rate on the Hill. In particular, Senator Rockefeller, Senator Markey, former Senator Snowe, and my colleague, Commissioner Rosenworth, who have been champions of E-rate from the beginning. She does it like a day over 15, does she? Anyway. And to my fellow commissioners, wink, wink. And to my fellow commissioners, I thank you, of course, and to the incredibly dedicated and hard staff, those seated and those named in the Wireline Competition Bureau, and to my wireline advisor, Rebecca Goodhart, who stayed here well after the air conditioner went off. We appreciate the tireless work that went into the presentation of this item. America truly will continue to benefit. And unless there is any more discussion, we will proceed to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I have to ask this, though I know all those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, so ordered. The request for editorial privileges is granted. Madam Secretary, if you would please announce our next item. Thank you so much.
Madam Chairwoman, Commissioners, the next item will be presented by the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau. It is entitled Speech-to-Speech and Internet Protocol, Speech-to-Speech Telecommunications Relay Services. Telecommunications relay services and speech-to-speech services for individuals with hearing and speech disabilities.
Thank you and welcome. Ms. Monteith.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. The Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau will present to you today a report and order and further notice of proposed rulemaking aimed at improving the functional equivalency of speech-to-speech relay service. SDS is a form of telecommunications relay services that utilizes trained communications assistants who understand the speech patterns of persons with speech disabilities and can repeat the words spoken by them to other parties to a relayed call. Today's item is yet another example of the Commission's long-standing commitment to ensuring that telecommunications relay services are available to ensure Americans with hearing and speech disabilities communicate in a manner that is functionally equivalent to communications using voice telephone service. I want to thank the staff of the Bureau's Disability Rights Office for their diligent work on this item. Joining me at the table today are CGB Deputy Bureau Chief Karen Pell-Strauss, Greg Leibach, Chief of CGB's Disability Rights Office, Bob Aldrich, Legal Advisor, Office of the Bureau Chief, and Elliot Greenwald, Attorney Advisor, Disability Rights Office. Greg will present the item.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. We are pleased to present a proposed report and order and further notice of proposed rulemaking. This item addresses speech-to-speech relay services, otherwise known as STS. STS is a type of telecommunications relay services that uses trained communications assistants who understand the speech patterns of persons with disabilities to relay calls between these individuals and other parties to a telephone call. The communications assistant repeats the words spoken by these individuals so that they can be understood and carry on a naturally flowing conversation. STS enables people with various types of speech disabilities, resulting, for example, from cerebral palsy, Parkinson's disease, or aphasia, to be able to communicate with others independently. Through STS, persons with speech disabilities can participate in a host of daily activities that they could not otherwise, such as making purchases and reservations, arranging appointments, and even looking for employment by phone. STS has been a mandated form of relay services since 2000. The report and order in FNPRM before you today responds to various petitions for rulemaking filed since 2006 by consumers and providers, seeking to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the STS program so that people who need this service are better able to use it. Specifically, the report and order does the following. Increases from 15 to 20 minutes the amount of time that a CA must stay with an STS call that extends for 20 minutes or longer, in recognition of the time needed for a CA to establish effective communication with an STS user. Secondly, because some STS users are uncomfortable with having their voices heard, the item requires that relay providers offer STS users the option to have their voices muted during an STS call so that the called party only hears the CA. And thirdly, requires that for STS calls initiated by dialing 711, STS users have the same ease of reaching an STS CA as users of other types of TRS using 711 to ensure that the process for reaching an STS CA is no more burdensome than reaching other types of CAs. As we celebrate the 23rd anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, we note that each of these changes is designed to improve the functional equivalency of STS for its users in furtherance of this landmark legislation. The further notice of proposed rulemaking that is before you seeks comment on the following: whether we should centralize outreach efforts on STS in a single nationwide entity. We believe that STS has been underutilized since it was first approved as a form of compensable relay service in 2000. Centralizing outreach may result in more effectively reaching and educating a greater portion of Americans who could benefit from this service. A centralized outreach effort also may help ensure that persons with speech disabilities, many of whom are not members of disability associations, become aware of these services and learn how to use them. Also, how to establish eligibility, registration, and verification of STS users so that these procedures align with other efforts taken by the Commission to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse in the TRS program and to promote the sustainability of the program. These efforts are designed to make sure that the services under this program are available to users who truly need them. Whether to eliminate certain of our mandatory minimum standards for speech-to-speech because they are not applicable to this form of relay service or cannot be achieved due to technological infeasibility. and whether to adopt other recommendations made by consumers to improve STS, such as the use of caller profiles that would enable communications assistance with particular pieces of information about the communication preferences of STS users in advance of calls. We believe that the actions taken in this proceeding and the proposed notice demonstrate the Commission's long-standing commitment to ensuring that relay services are available to all Americans with speech disabilities who need these services. The Bureau recommends adoption of this item and requests editorial privileges. I will now turn it over to Karen, who will be introducing a video demonstration that we'll be presenting of speech-to-speech in action. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. You will now see a demonstration of a speech-to-speech call by an individual who's interested in purchasing a pizza. We wish to thank the California Relay Program for allowing us to show this program and to edit it.
It's captioned. It should be captioned.
Hello, this is California Pizza. How may I help you? Hello? I can't hear you. I want a pizza. Excuse me, I don't understand. Is there anyone else I can talk to? Pizza, please. Sorry.
In the beginning, we saw Kevin trying to order a pizza. Unfortunately, that didn't work so well. Let's see if the speech-to-speech communication assistant can help Kevin get his pizza after all.
California Speech-to-Speech, this is CA number 1234. Area code and number to dial, please.
Yes, I want to order a pizza for delivery. The number is 510-323-4545.
Shall I identify who is calling?
Yes, it's Kevin Siemens.
Kevin Siemens. Thank you. Please hold while I dial 510-323-4545.
Hello, California Pizza. How can I help you?
California Speech-to-Speech. This is CA number 1234 with a call from Kevin Siemens. Are you familiar with speech-to-speech?
No. What?
You are receiving a call from a person who has difficulty speaking. The caller will speak and I will revoice in short phrases. When you hear a long pause or the words "go ahead," it's your turn to respond. Please speak directly to the other party and say "go ahead" when you are ready for a response. Caller, you may begin.
Hi, I would like to order a pizza.
Hi, I would like to order a pizza.
Okay. for pickup or delivery?
Delivery, please.
Okay. What size and topping?
A large pizza with spinach, Italian sausage, and extra cheese.
Italian sausage and extra cheese?
Yeah.
Okay, a large pizza with the spinach, Italian sausage, and extra cheese. Anything to drink?
No.
No.
Okay. Your total would be $15.75. And the pizza will be there in about 30 to 40 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Some may have noticed that the communications assistant did not repeat all of the toppings that the individual requested. We just want to note that this was because we needed to edit the tape for length. And we can assure you that the communications assistant actually clarified all the toppings that he wanted, and he got the pizza that he requested with spinach, extra cheese, and sausage. Thank you.
That concludes our presentation of the item and the demo. Thank you.
Thank you so much. At this time, we will hear comments from the bench. Commissioner Rosenworcel.
Okay. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, functional equivalency has been the foundation of our telecommunications relay service policies. Functional equivalency may sound like the kind of regulatory lingo that only a lawyer could love. But for millions of Americans with hearing and speech impairments, it means that they have the right and ability to pick up the phone, reach out and connect, and participate more fully in the world. Today, more than 1 million Americans, including an increasing number of veterans suffering from brain injuries, live with speech disabilities. These disabilities can make it difficult to communicate and hard to make even a simple phone call. But the Commission's speech-to-speech telecommunications relay service is designed to help. Our rules permit people with speech disabilities to speak with a trained communications assistant who then relays the words of the speech-to-speech user to the called party. It means that people with speech disabilities can do the things that so many of us take for granted. Pick up the phone and seek emergency help, secure a job, make a doctor's appointment, follow up with a child's teacher, and connect with family and friends. But as good as this program is, there is room for improvement. So today we take steps to improve speech-to-speech services. Specifically, to limit disruption for users, we require communications assistants to stay on the line for at least 20 minutes before switching the caller to a new assistant. At the same time, we permit a speech-to-speech communications assistant to transfer a call to another assistant if he or she is unable to understand the speech-to-speech user. Speech-to-speech users also may now mute their voices on a call to reduce listener confusion. In addition, we seek comment on ways to increase awareness of the speech-to-speech program so it can help more people with speech disabilities communicate effectively. The net result should be more dignity for users, more clarity for communications assistants, and more effective calls. So thank you to the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau for your work today and for your continued commitment to functional equivalency.
Thank you, Chairwoman Clyburn. 79 years ago, Congress created the FCC to make available, so far as possible, to all the people of the United States, without discrimination, a rapid, efficient, nationwide and worldwide wire and radio communications service. And Congress, led by my former Senator Bob Dole, reiterated that message 23 years ago with the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Today, we reaffirm our commitment to this vital mission by strengthening the Telecommunications Relay Service, or TRS, program used by so many Americans with disabilities. The reforms we make to the speech-to-speech component of TRS may appear incremental to some, but they can be monumental for those in need, whether it's extra cheese or extra help in an emergency. The muting requirement, for example, is a simple fix to ensure that the message of those with a speaking disability comes through clearly. Extending the minimum stay time should allow fuller and more longer discussions for users. And making speech-to-speech service easier to access is just as important. There's no reason why 711 can't offer the full range of TRS programs, including speech-to-speech, from the same straightforward, interactive menu. None of the reforms adopted today would be possible without the hard work of the Commission's Disability Rights Office. And with my colleagues' indulgence, I'd like to recognize them all for their dedicated efforts. Greg Hlybach, Marilyn Abraham, Helen Chang, Rosalind Crawford, Jackie Ellington, Elaine Gardner, Elliot Greenwald, Salita Griffiths, Christina Abert, John Herzog, Roger Holberg, Sharita Kennedy, Cheryl King, Diane Mason, Judy Miller, Tracy Randolph, Siobhan Morris, Susie Rosen-Singleton, and Dana Wilson, along with their fantastic front office support, Chief Chris Monteith, Karen Peltz-Strauss, and Bob Aldrich. Thank all of you for everything you've done, not only with respect to this item, but in ensuring that our communication system meets the needs of all Americans, including those with disabilities. And thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Commissioners. Today we mark the eve of the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act in 3 distinct ways. First, as you've just heard, we're improving a service that allows people with speech disabilities to communicate through telephone networks. This is another step toward fulfilling the promise of Title IV of the ADA, which requires access by people with hearing or speech disabilities to our telephone system through telecommunications relay services. Second, our Consumer Bureau will release a public notice seeking comment on a request to update our hearing aid compatibility standards, which will allow people with hearing loss to have better volume control on wireline phones. Finally, later this morning, we will hear from our staff about the Commission's implementation of another landmark law, the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act. The CVAA is already ensuring that all Americans with disabilities are able to use a host of the latest communications and video programming technologies currently available to the general public. The speech-to-speech or STS item before us highlights a unique service that allows those with speech disabilities to connect to others using the phone network and specially trained communications assistants. The Commission first mandated STS in 2000 as a means of fulfilling our charge under the ADA to ensure that the nation's relay services make use of modern technologies. In the years that followed, the Commission has received requests and proposals for improving this critical service, and today we answer these requests by improving service standards for those using phone services. By requiring these communications assistants to stay with each STS call for a minimum of 20 minutes, we lessen the disruption that sometimes results when assistants are timed out from a call before it is concluded. It generally takes a few minutes for a communications assistant to gain a full understanding of the speech patterns of a person with a speech disability, especially if names and technical terms are used during a conversation. Reducing the number of times that these assistants must change during a call will result in greater functional equivalency for the user and will allow these calls to be processed more effectively. Similarly, our requirement for STS providers to offer users the option of having their voices muted during a call will minimize disruption to the conversation flow. Finally, by ensuring that consumers who access STS by dialing 711 are able to promptly reach a communications assistant, we will make it easier for them to use these services. We also seek comment on other ways we can improve STS. We particularly remain concerned that despite considerable outreach funding that has been provided over the past several years, there are many potential STS users who could benefit from but may remain unaware of this service. The proposal to centralize STS outreach efforts through a single national outreach coordinator is another step in improving the Commission's stewardship of the TRS fund. Our goal is to efficiently reach and educate a greater portion of the population of Americans who could benefit from this service. We also ask how to best register, certify, and verify STS users, which builds on our recent actions on video relay services to curb waste, fraud, and abuse. There should be no doubt about our unwavering commitment to a sustainable fund supporting these services. We are also aware that a new form of STS, which uses video technology over broadband to allow the communication assistants to see the STS user he or she is speaking to, is now being provided by certain state programs. We understand from some of the petitioners in this proceeding that having the ability to see the STS caller's facial expressions, gestures, and lip movements, as well as cue cards that the caller could hold up, can help the communications assistant better understand and revoice for the STS user. We will be opening a second STS proceeding in the coming months to seek comment on this new form of STS, as well as other ways that internet-based technologies can help improve this service. I am also pleased to announce that these rules, which will bring us closer to functional equivalence for Americans with speech disabilities, this all provides an invaluable service for those often overlooked members of our community and enables them to more fully participate in American life. I wish to acknowledge at this point the extraordinary work of Dr. Bob Siegelman, founder of STS, whose ingenuity has enabled people with speech disabilities across this nation to enjoy independence and privacy when using the telephone. Unfortunately, Bob could not be with us today as he is based in California, but we hope he is watching our live web feed. He is here with us, of course, in spirit. Additionally, I want to express appreciation to Rebecca Ladue, and I have a French first name, I'm sorry about that, a local speech-to-speech advocate who has served on some of our advisory committees. Bob and Rebecca, your commitment to these issues is unparalleled, and we thank you for the work you've done to make it possible for people with speech disabilities to have seamless communications. And of course, today's and next week's ADA celebrations are milestones, but of course, by no means the end of the road. So much more remains to be done to ensure that people with special needs are full participants in this communications revolution. I again thank my fellow commissioners for joining me as we move further toward this important goal. And of course, I must thank the Consumer and Government Affairs Bureau for your outstanding work. You have named everyone for me. Thank you. To ensure that individuals with disabilities have full access to our communication systems, and for all your efforts to fulfill our obligations under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And unless there's any more discussion, we will proceed to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The request for editorial privileges is granted. Madam Secretary, please announce our next item.
Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners, for your final presentation today, the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, together with the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau and the Media Bureau, will provide a report on the Commission's implementation of the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act.
Ms. Monteith?
Good morning again, Madam Chairman.
I think
and
it's afternoon,
Commissioners.
but thank you
Oh,
for...
we're at afternoon, okay.
Wishful thinking. Thank you. I appreciate it.
The Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, together with the Wireless Telecommunications and Media Bureaus, is pleased to present to you today a report on the Commission's implementation of the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act, which was signed into law by President Obama in October 2010. As we approach and celebrate the 23rd anniversary of the signing into law of the Americans with Disabilities Act, it is fitting to also recognize and celebrate the significant strides made by the Commission in implementing the CVAA, another landmark law for people with disabilities. As you will see in today's presentation, the Commission, through the collaborative and innovative efforts of many bureaus and offices, has accomplished a great deal in the almost 3-year period since the CVAA's enactment. I want to thank my colleagues across the agency for their coordination, creativity, and teamwork, which have resulted in the extraordinary accomplishments that together we present. We also want to thank the leadership and staff of CGB's Disability Rights Office for their diligent work, not only on this report, but also on the many action items leading up to the accomplishments we discussed today. Joining me at the table are CGB Deputy Bureau Chief Karen Pelt-Strauss, Greg Leibach, Chief of CGB's Disability Rights Office, and Attorney Advisors Rosaline Crawford, Jackie Ellington, and John Herzog of the Disability Rights Office. Also joining me at the table are Brian Regan, Legal Advisor, Office of the Bureau Chief, Wireless Telecommunications Bureau, and Adam Copeland, Attorney Advisor, Policy Division, Media Bureau. Brian and Adam will participate with us in the presentation of this report. I thank Ruth Milkman, Chief of the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau, and Bill Lake, Chief of the Media Bureau, and their respective staffs for all of their help and support in implementing the CVAA. Karen will now begin our report.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman and Commissioners. We are pleased to present this report on the Commission's implementation of the CVAA as part of the celebration of the 23rd anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. As you've just heard, landmark legislation intended to bring all Americans with disabilities into the mainstream of our society. The CVAA is considered by many to be the most significant legislation for people with disabilities since the passage of the ADA in 1990. In the 1980s and the 1990s, Congress enacted several laws designed to ensure access by people with disabilities to the telephone and television. With these laws addressing captioning, relay services, hearing aid compatibility, and accessible telecommunications services and equipment, we went a long way toward providing communications access to people with disabilities. But we were unable to keep up with the emerging technologies of the 21st century. New Internet-enabled mobile and digital communications and video technologies were gaining enormous popularity among the general public at the turn of the century, but threatened to leave consumers with disabilities behind because many of these technologies did not include accessibility features. The CVAA was enacted to make sure that the accessibility needs of people with disabilities would be addressed in these modern innovations, so that these individuals have the same opportunities as those without disabilities to use communication tools for access to employment and economic opportunities, education, health services, recreation, civic engagement, emergency services, and the marketplace. The CVAA is divided into two titles, the communications section and video programming section. We are pleased to report that because of the extraordinary efforts of nearly every bureau and office in this commission, the commission has met every CVAA deadline in 9 separate proceedings over the last nearly 3 years. First, under Title I, addressing communications matters, the Commission has issued rules requiring access to advanced communication services and equipment used with these services, which will be fully implemented by October 8, 2013. You will hear more about these rules from Brian Regan of the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau shortly. The Commission has also issued rules requiring non-interconnected voice over Internet protocol providers or VoIP providers to join telecommunications providers and interconnected VoIP providers in making contributions to the Telecommunications Relay Services Fund. This requirement will help ensure the sustainability of this fund, which enables people with hearing and speech disabilities and who are deafblind to use our telephone system. Title I also requires the Commission, as part of the migration to a national Internet-enabled emergency network, to establish an advisory committee to make recommendations on the technologies needed to enable access to emergency services by people with disabilities. In 2011, the Commission established the Emergency Access Advisory Committee, or the EAAC, commonly known as the EAC, which met for over 2 years. During this time, the EAC completed a survey of over 3,000 individuals with disabilities to obtain information about the most effective ways for them to access emergency services. The EAC's survey and resulting recommendations greatly helped shape the Commission's proceeding on implementing text to 911 capabilities. In July 2012, the Commission launched the National Deaf-Blind Equipment Distribution Program. This program authorizes up to $10 million annually from the Interstate TRS Fund for the distribution of communications equipment to low-income individuals with significant combined hearing and vision loss. The launch of this program represented the first time that our federal policy has taken concrete action to ensure that this underserved and often isolated population has an equal opportunity to participate in our nation's communications infrastructure. A pilot form of this program, now in its second year, has already distributed equipment to hundreds of individuals across the country, giving them the tools that they need to be independent and productive. Pictured here on this slide is the I Can Connect website created by our National Outreach Coordinator for the Deaf-Blind Equipment Distribution Program, which is the Perkins School for the Deaf in partnership with the Helen Keller National Center. I Can Connect has been actively working to educate communities all over America about this important program to ensure that every low-income individual with a combined hearing and vision loss has access to modern communications tools and the training to use them. And I just want to note that they even have an ad in People magazine about this, so I'd be happy to share this with you afterwards. Just learned that this morning, so it's not in my official remarks. In April of this year, the Commission adopted rules to require web browsers on mobile phones to be accessible to people who are blind and visually impaired, also required under Title I of the CVAA. We are pleased to report that some telephone manufacturers have already complied with this provision, even though it doesn't become effective until this October. John Herzog, sitting to my left, of CGB's Disability Rights Office, will soon provide a demonstration of this type of access. Title II of the CVAA focuses on video programming. This morning you heard about the changing nature of such programming and about how new technologies are helping to make it possible for everyone to access video anywhere at any time on all types of video equipment. In a moment, you will hear from Adam Copeland of the Media Bureau about the many rules that the Commission has already adopted under this title to make sure that people with disabilities also have access to these innovations. These include mandates for video description on television programs to be shown with closed captions when they're delivered over the internet, accessible televised emergency information for people who are blind and visually impaired, and accessible consumer video devices. Also noted on this slide is the Video Programming Accessibility Advisory Committee, which was created by the Commission in 2011, whose invaluable input has helped the Commission complete these various proceedings. And now I would like to introduce John Herzog, as I mentioned, an attorney advisor in the Disability Rights Office, who will demonstrate an accessible web browser on a mobile phone.
Give me 1 second, Karen. I got to unlock the phone. 12:40 p.m. 12:03 6. That's one of the screens. 3 2 N 2 5 8 0 N 1 4 N enter. Device unlocked. There we go. I want to make sure I know where the other microphone is. Right here. I'm going to move that a little closer to me. There we go. Perfect. Good afternoon, Madam Commissioner, and I'm sorry. Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman, Commissioners. Sorry about that. As Karen said, my name is John Herzog, and to do this presentation of a web browser, I'm going to be using an Android-powered phone. Now, the nice thing about the Android phones is that they have a built-in screen reader that allows a blind person, such as myself, to get verbal feedback as they use their phone. Now, this is a touchscreen device, and touchscreen devices were previously thought to be almost impossible to make accessible to blind people, but we've had a lot of companies innovate since then, and now touchscreens are great for both beginner and expert blind users. When I put my finger on the touch screen, you're going to hear my phone tell me what my finger is touching. And as I move it around, you're going to hear the screen reader respond appropriately by telling me what I've moved it to. So I'm going to put my finger on the screen. Messaging. Voicemail. Messaging. Gmail. I'm going to see if that microphone picks it up a little bit better. Messaging. Gmail. So it's voicemail, messaging, Gmail. And this is great because it allows a blind person with no experience with a touch screen to touch the screen and figure out what their finger's on. But it also allows people like me, who are advanced users, to memorize where things are. So right now what I'm going to do, since I'm going to show off the web browser, is I'm going to touch the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, which is where my applications are. Now, let me turn this up a little bit too, the phone. Let me just do that really quickly too. Radio. Image 9. Hero widget. 12:42 p.m. No, it was just on my end. Music volume saturate. There we go. Now I'm going to tap on apps.
So they moved your microphone, the other microphone, a little bit to your left.
Okay, perfect.
Okay?
Perfect,
So it
thank
doesn't
you.
interfere with this.
Help. Google. And I need to go to Firefox, so I'm swiping left. Basically, the apps appear in an alphabetical list, and I'm just going to touch a few of them now.
Flipboard. Goggles. Golf game. Google settings. Ideal currency identifier.
And I'm going to swipe with two fingers from the right-hand side of the screen to the left to bring up the second page of apps. And now that's going to
multi-window. Drag an application.
That's going to bring up Firefox.
Game Hub. Fairfax Red Top 10. Firefox Beta.
I'm going to double tap on that, and that's going to open Firefox, the web browser. Now, once the web browser is open, I have a couple of things on my screen. If I double tap near the top of the screen, it brings up an address field where I can enter the address of a website. If I want to, I can also look at all of the other websites that I visited by dragging my finger down the screen and seeing the most recent ones. What I'm going to do for now is I'm going to double tap near the top of my screen and bring up the address field. When this happens, there's going to be a keyboard that's put on the screen. It's called a soft keyboard. And this is accessible to a blind individual because when they drag their finger around to the different letters, they're going to hear what letters they're on by the screen reader. It will announce it. And then when I pick up my finger, that letter will be typed into the field. So I'm going to do this now. I'm going to touch near the top of the screen.
Top sites. Double tap to select. Enter search or address.
Double tap there.
Firefox Beta.
And now I'm going to move my finger around the keyboard and go to fcc.gov.
Space. Period. www.
There's a www key, which is very helpful. So I'm going to put that in there.
www. Space. Period. Period. C. V. V. F. F. C. 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 Space. Period. Period. C.
And as you can see, it's reading what I'm touching, and then it's repeating it again when I lift my finger.
Space. V. Go.
And it says go.
Firefox Beta.
So I lifted my finger there, and what's going to happen is it's loading, and as soon as the FCC website loads, the screen reader is going to say either the address of the web page, or it's going to say the title of the web page, which is home.fcc.gov. And let's see what's...
Problem loading page, heading level 1. Firefox can't find the server at www.fcc.gov.
Well,
I didn't cross my toes, I'm sorry.
It worked perfectly fine at the demo. But, one thing I will show you right now, guys, is if I flick right and left on the page, even this page that says, hey, we can't load this website, I can read the content, which it just did. So I'm going to do that one more time.
Okay. List 2 items. First item, check the address for typing errors such as...
And then if I flick left, it's going to tell me...
Firefox can't find the server at heading level 1. Server not found.
But you get the idea. It does read the content of the web page if I flick my fingers left and right. The other thing that I can do, I have another means of inputting a web address. And the way that I'm going to do that now is I'm going to tap up again near the top of the screen. And it said this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a voice search. Now, this is a Google search, and I'm going to do this because on the keyboard to the left of the spacebar, there's a voice input button that allows me to speak directly into my phone. I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to search for fried chicken recipes. So hold on. Let me tap near the top of the screen.
Problem loading page. Damaged South Dakota.
Let's see.
Damaged South Dakota. Shade opened.
Let's see. I'm going to do...
Problem loading page.
Blah, blah, blah.
Firefox Beta.
There we go.
Space. Voice input. Clear text.
Fried chicken recipes.
Fried chicken recipe.
And as you can tell...
He's asking too. Like, what? Really?
And if I tap on that, I tap on fried chicken recipes. And it now, it says loading, and it's going to give me a Google search with a whole bunch of different fried chicken recipes.
Google search loaded.
There we go, and that time it did work correctly, and the screen reader said that was loaded. So if I flick through the screen again, I can see a whole bunch of different fried chicken recipes and choose the best one. There's one final thing I want to show on my demonstration before I turn the microphone over. The CVAA mandates that all internal controls of a web browser be accessible. And so that includes the settings and the ability to add bookmarks and things like this. And so if I hit the menu key, which is located on the bottom left of my screen, it will give me options such as share, refresh, add bookmark, etc., etc. And as I move my finger over those, the screen reader is going to read those aloud to me too. So I'm just going to do that very briefly.
Showing items, share. New private tab. New tab. Reload button.
And there you have it. It reads everything to me, and if I double tap, just like I did earlier, it would select everything. So I hope that this brief presentation has been informative and that it has helped show the benefits that the CVAA is already giving or affording to people like myself using the mobile technology. And I will say one more thing before closing. I am willing to show this to people if they want to ask me after the meeting how it works or see how it works themselves.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Thanks for the offer.
Thank you, John. And I realize it's a little dangerous talking about pizza and fried chicken during the lunch hour. So we're going to move right along. Next, we have Brian Regan of the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau, who will inform us about the Commission's new rules requiring disability access to advanced communications services.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. The CVAA and the Commission's rules implementing Section 716 of the Act are intended to ensure that individuals with disabilities are able to access the innovative and increasingly essential advanced communications technologies of the 21st century. These include services such as text messaging, IP-enabled voice services, and email. Access to these advanced communication services is critical to afford individuals with disabilities the opportunity to share in the economic, social, and civic benefits of broadband. In implementing Section 716 of the Act, the Commission sought to advance accessibility for ACS in a way that is consistent with the Commission's objectives of promoting investment and innovation. The Commission was mindful of the potential burdens on industry and adopted rules that provide flexibility and encourage efficient accessibility solutions. the Commission balanced the time needed to improve design and manufacturing processes to incorporate accessibility solutions with the critical need to ensure accessibility to ACS, and adopted a reasonable compliance date set 2 years after the rules were adopted. Specifically, Part 14 of the Commission's rules outline a set of obligations and performance objectives that manufacturers of ACS equipment and providers of ACS must meet by October 8, 2013. Most critically, manufacturers of equipment used for ACS and providers of ACS must ensure that their equipment, software, and services are accessible to and usable by individuals with disabilities unless doing so is not achievable. If accessibility is not achievable, manufacturers and providers of ACS must still ensure compatibility with existing devices and equipment used by individuals with disabilities to achieve access, unless that too is not achievable. Part 14 includes a number of additional obligations that manufacturers of equipment used for ACS and providers of ACS must meet. Manufacturers and providers must also consider performance objectives at the design stage as early as possible and must implement these performance objectives to the extent achievable. The performance objectives are tied to the key obligations under Part 14, including elements of what it means for equipment or services to be accessible, usable, and compatible. To provide some flexibility, the Commission may waive these requirements for multipurpose equipment or services, or classes of equipment or services, that are capable of accessing an ACS but are designed primarily for purposes other than using ACS. Additionally, qualifying small entities are exempt from these requirements until October 8, 2013. In addition to obligations and performance requirements designed to ensure that advanced communication services are accessible, Part 14 also establishes record keeping, consumer dispute assistance, and enforcement rules pursuant to Section 717 of the Act. These obligations apply to ACS subject to Section 716 and entities covered by Sections 255 and 718. Together, these rules help ensure that individuals with disabilities have access to and benefit from significant advances in communications technologies. Adam Copeland of the Media Bureau will now give a presentation on the Commission's implementation of the CVAA's requirements pertaining to video programming.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman, Commissioners. Today I will be describing the 4 rulemakings conducted thus far by the Commission to implement Title II of the CVAA. These rulemakings are designed to achieve Congress's goals of making video programming and the devices consumers use to access video programming more accessible to those who are blind or visually impaired, as well as those who are deaf or hard of hearing. To date, the Commission has completed on schedule and in accordance with its statutory deadlines 3 rulemakings to implement Title II. A 4th rulemaking is currently underway, which must be completed by October. First, on October 8, 2011, the Commission reinstated, with minor revisions, video description rules that it had previously adopted in 2000 but that had been struck down by the D.C. Circuit as beyond the Commission's authority. Video description is audio narration describing key visual elements that is inserted into pauses in a program's dialogue and makes television more accessible to individuals who are blind or visually impaired. Pursuant to the reinstated rules, broadcast affiliates of the top 4 networks that are located in the top 25 DMAs and the MVPDs with more than 50,000 subscribers are required to provide video description. On July 1, 2015, this requirement will extend to broadcast affiliates of the top 4 networks in the top 60 DMAs. Covered broadcasters must provide 50 hours of video-described primetime or children's programming per quarter, while covered MVPDs must provide 50 hours per quarter of video description on the 5 most popular non-broadcast networks that do not primarily air live or near-live programming. The covered non-broadcast networks are currently USA, Disney, Nickelodeon, TBS, and TNT. In addition, all network-affiliated broadcasters, including non-commercial broadcasters, and all MVPDs, regardless of market or size, must pass through video description if it is technically feasible to do so. Currently, the Commission is in the process of gathering public comment regarding video description in video programming delivered via both television and the Internet to help inform a CVAA-mandated report to Congress that will be due July 1, 2014. In January 2012, the Commission adopted rules requiring that programming that aired on television with closed captioning also include captions when shown on the Internet. Since 1993, most televisions have been required to have built-in capability to display closed captions. With the rules adopted in January 2012 pursuant to Section 203 of the CVAA, that capability will now be required in a host of modern communications devices, such as personal computers, tablets, video game consoles, and smartphones. In addition, the Commission's new rules currently require that live, near live, and pre-recorded programming that is not specially edited for Internet distribution to have captions when distributed on the Internet. Beginning September 30th, pre-recorded programming that is specially edited for Internet distribution must be captioned. The rules also establish separate deadlines beginning in 2015 for programming already in video programming distributors' libraries. In April, the Commission completed a third Title II rulemaking that adopted rules requiring that emergency information be made accessible to individuals who are blind or visually impaired and ensured that video programming apparatus have the ability to transmit emergency information and video description. These rules are designed to help ensure that blind or visually impaired individuals are no longer placed at a disadvantage in receiving critical emergency information from video programmers. Specifically, the Commission imposed a new requirement, effective May 26, 2015, that emergency information provided visually during non-newscasts be described orally on a secondary audio stream. In addition, the Commission required that beginning in May 2015, covered video programming apparatus must make the secondary audio stream available for emergency information and video description. Finally, in May, the Commission issued an NPRM to initiate a fourth CVAA Title II rulemaking to implement Sections 204 and 205. These sections require that the built-in apparatus functions of digital apparatus used to view video programming and the on-screen text menus and guides of navigation devices be made accessible to those who are blind or visually impaired. These sections also require that closed captioning and other accessibility features be made accessible through a mechanism that is reasonably comparable to a button, key, or icon. The goal of these sections is to ensure that people with visual or oral disabilities are able to fully enjoy the news and entertainment programming now being made available on a wide range of devices. Comments in this proceeding were due this past Monday, July 15th, and reply comments are due August 7th. The Commission is required by the CVAA to prescribe final rules by October 9th of this year. Now, Rosaline Crawford of CGB's Disability Rights Office will introduce a video of closed captioning programming delivered via the Internet.
Thank you, Adam. Madam Chairwoman, Commissioners, CBS has graciously provided us with a video of someone watching an Internet-delivered TV program with captions. Due to some technical challenges, you may not be able to see the captions clearly enough to read them here, but we are pleased to be able to show you that captions are being provided. In this scene, from the CBS comedy The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon feels lost because one of his favorite sci-fi TV shows gets canceled after a cliffhanger episode. His girlfriend, Amy, tries to help him get over his compulsive need for closure with some very interesting therapy, which we will see here. Cue video.
For the land of the free and the home of the... Next. It's quite an impressive layout, isn't it? Yes. Let's box it up.
Let's box it up.
That's enough.
Give it!
Okay, Sheldon, make a wish and blow out the candles. Oops, missed one. Now your wish can't come true.
Thank you. And now Karen will continue with our presentation.
In addition to the many rulemakings about which you just heard, in October 2011, the Commission also launched an accessibility clearinghouse, also in compliance with the CVAA. This serves as a central hub for information about accessible communications products and services to help people with disabilities find the tools they need to have effective communications. And finally, on this slide, you will see our web address for the Accessibility Clearinghouse, as well as our CVAA website, which has a lot of information about all of the proceedings that we just discussed. We also invite the public to read our recent report to Congress, submitted in October, detailing the progress that we have made on implementing this law. Thank you. And now Chris Monteith will wrap up our presentation.
To conclude, the CVAA allows access to today's communications technologies by many who would otherwise be left behind. It has been our pleasure, together with many across the agency, to have contributed to the agency's successful implementation of this landmark legislation. Thank you for allowing us to showcase our hard work and those of many in the Commission.
Thank you. Quite a busy summer. Thank you so much. Commissioner Rosenworcel.
Pizza, fried chicken, and the Big Bang Theory. 23 years ago, the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law. Upon signing, President George H.W. Bush famously said, "Let the shameful walls of exclusion finally come tumbling down." Well put. After all, this was a phenomenal piece of civil rights legislation. It laid the foundation for the meaningful inclusion of 54 million Americans with disabilities in our modern civic and economic life. 3 years ago, I had the privilege to join President Barack Obama at the White House when the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act was signed into law. Just as 2 decades earlier, the Americans with Disabilities Act tore down walls, this new law pried open doors of opportunity and access for the Internet era. I had the honor of working with Senator Mark Pryor and others on this historic legislation. So a signed copy of the final law hangs on my wall right by the entry to my office. I will always be proud that I had the opportunity to play a small role in its passage. But I'm even prouder still of the Federal Communications Commission. This agency, as we've just heard, has done yeoman's work implementing the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act. This is a law with many twists and turns. Advisory committees, clearinghouses, distribution programs, captioning obligations, description duties, interfaces, guides, menus. There is a lot to tackle. But across our many bureaus and offices, the goal has been simple: putting policies in place that will extend opportunity and access in the digital age. And that's a goal worth fighting for. Like the Americans with Disabilities Act before it, the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act is destined for the history books. So thank you to the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, Wireless Telecommunications Bureau, Media Bureau, and Office of General Counsel for your work to date. Thank you also goes to the consumer electronics industry, telecommunications companies, and providers and distributors of video programming for their efforts. Finally, we would not be celebrating our success without the tireless advocacy of the many champions of Americans with disabilities who fought for this law and pressed for its just implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Pai.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. When President George H.W. Bush signed into law the Americans with Disabilities Act 23 years ago this month, he expressed his hope that every American with a disability would, quote, pass through once closed doors into a new era of equality, independence, and freedom. To me, it is those three words, equality, independence, and freedom, that represent the promise of making communications services accessible to all Americans with disabilities. Access to communications can give people with disabilities an equal chance to succeed in our society. Access makes it easier for them to lead independent lives, and access helps to provide them with the freedom to pursue their hopes and dreams. This morning, our staff has ably summarized all of the steps that the FCC has taken to implement the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act, or CVAA. Their presentations make clear two things, at least to me. First, Congress gave the Commission a challenging set of deadlines for establishing numerous rules to ensure that accessibility requirements would keep pace with our fast-moving communications marketplace. And second, to date, the FCC has met every single one of those deadlines. That is a record that you and all of us should be proud of. I salute former Chairman Janikowski and Chairwoman Clyburn for their leadership that was critical in achieving this result. And most of all, I want to thank the Commission staff for all of their hard work parsing and implementing the CVAA. While the task before us has been daunting, you've never faltered. From the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau to the Media Bureau, from the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau to the Office of General Counsel, and beyond, it has truly been a team effort. You should take great satisfaction in knowing that your work is helping to bring Americans with disabilities closer to the promise of those three cherished values: equality, independence, and freedom. Thanks for all that you do. And thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you so much. Today we focus on what could be called the sister to the ADA, the CVAA. The FCC has been moving aggressively to implement this act that came 20 years after the Americans with Disability Act, and I am so proud, like you, Commissioner, that the Commission has hit each and every deadline set by the Act. Many wonderful things could be said today, but perhaps the most important to me is that this is a forward-thinking law. Rather than view the accessibility needs of people with disabilities as an afterthought in the design of new products and services, this law makes sure that these obligations are considered from the very beginning of design. Building tomorrow's devices for all, not just for some, is not only the law, it is the right thing to do. So thanks to CVAA, those with disabilities now have more access to telephones, television, the internet, and new applications and services. High-speed internet and mobile technologies offer an unprecedented opportunity to enhance the independence, productivity, and overall quality of life for us all. But CVA helped broaden that for us all. So I wish to express my sincere appreciation for those champions already mentioned, Senator Pryor, Senator Markey, for making this all a reality. I also wish to thank the Consumer and Government Affairs Bureau, the Media Bureau, the Wireless Bureau, the Office of General Counsel, the Enforcement Bureau, and others for your guidance and leadership. I want to express my deep appreciation for the enthusiasm and participation of those who played such an important role in making sure that we stayed on our toes, stayed on course to get done what needed to be done. And my gratitude extends to those commissioners past and present for helping to advance this most important cause. And I wish to also express my thanks that they would not be complete if I did not acknowledge all of the work of Karen Pell Strauss, one of government's greatest champions. Her watchful eye and listening ear continue to augment the lives of millions of Americans who will forever benefit from her amazing talents. Thank you so much, Karen. And to all of those hard-working individuals who have carried the baton on these issues because of your work and what the staff has done to 26 million Americans who are deaf or have hearing loss can now watch television programs with closed captions when those programs are reshown over the internet, and use those cell phones, tablets, and other portable devices to watch these programs with captions. 25 million Americans who are blind or visually impaired can now enjoy TV programs with visual description and will, over the next few years, be able to navigate a TV menu, send an email or instant message on a smartphone, and have access to emergency information on television. Thousands of those who are deafblind can receive accessible communication devices so that they too can make telephone calls and access the internet to work, learn, shop, just like everyone else. And because of the Commission's work, Americans with disabilities are able to locate accessible communications products and services through our Accessibility Clearinghouse. What a unique opportunity to harness new wireless, digital, and broadcast technologies in order to improve all of our lives. So many people have been a part of this movement, including those on the bench, but please allow me to also acknowledge Claude Stroud of the Telecommunications for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Association, my friend Claude over there, Mark Rickard of the American Foundation for the Blind, Al Sonnenstrahl, I didn't say that right, Al, forgive me, a long-standing champion of telecommunications issues. All of you have helped move the ball down the field on these and so many issues, and all of us are eternally grateful. And of course, the hardworking staff here at the FCC. Hopefully their names will be queued up, and hopefully your contacts are working better than mine right now. But all of those incredible people who work tirelessly to turn thought into action, they collectively occupy a special place in my heart. They embody the best in public service, and the belief that American government works truly for all people. I commend them and feel so lucky to be associated with them today. Thank you so very much. And at this time, I don't even know how to make a transition after all of that, but thank you so very much. At this time, do my colleagues have any announcements they would like to make at this time?
No, I'd like to go to lunch.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's a collective announcement. But Commissioner Pai.
Well, we will get to lunch. I just want to take a few minutes, though, to thank some of my outgoing law clerks. Each of them will be here for a few more weeks, but this is going to be the last commission meeting they'll have the privilege of attending. I'll just start with the clerk who's been with us the longest, Josh Cox, if he could stand. Josh joined our office in January, and he has managed to put up with me for 7 months. I thank him for that. His efforts have been really invaluable on a wide variety of issues, from cell phone unlocking to the incentive auction proceeding and AM radio. Josh has also taught me a number of things, stream of new things during his tenure, especially things relating to the finer tastes in life. Just this week, for instance, Josh told me about something called the pickleback, which I had not heard about previously. The first shot is whiskey, the second is pickle juice. Who knew? Earlier this summer, Josh also told me that he had a Wendy's Baconator for dinner 3 days in a row. This fall, the lean and mean Josh will be entering his third year of law school at George Mason, assuming those Baconators don't take a toll on his ticker. Josh, thank you for all the great work, and we wish you all the best as you finish up law school. Next, let me turn to Brian Cleveland. Brian was introduced to the FCC this summer through his work on the mobile device CP&I item, and he's done excellent work for us all the way through, continuing on CVA implementation, the incentive auction proceeding, and E-rate. I've noticed one thing about Brian is that he works with Usain Bolt-like speed. I mean, you send him an assignment, and by the time you send it, he's already returned it to you and is asking for new work, which is just really impressive. In August, Brian will be heading back to Massachusetts to start his second year at Harvard Law School. Brian, we appreciate all of your contributions to the office, and we look forward to seeing all the great things that you're going to accomplish in your career. Last but not least is Ian Moore. I think it's fitting that we adopted the E-rate NPRM at Ian's last meeting because Ian's summer has been dominated by E-rate. Indeed, in our office, we secretly call him Mr. E-rate, not that he knows that. Ian's efforts were critical both to my recent speech at the American Enterprise Institute and also our office's consideration of the NPRM. He grabbed the bull by the horns and he mastered what truly is a pretty complex and difficult subject for anybody, especially someone coming to the issue tabula rasa. He also made the mistake of giving me his personal email address, which I'm sure he has regretted many an evening when he gets an email from me or one of the other night owls in our office. But we're thankful for his responsiveness nonetheless. In August, Ian will be starting his second year of law school at NYU. Ian, I'm very grateful to you for your work in the office, and as you leave, let me make one thing clear. When the Commission moves to the report and order stage on the E-rate proceeding, I fully expect you to drop out, to return to the FCC, and to provide the wise counsel that you've provided over these many months. So thanks to all three of you. You've been fantastic.
Thank you.
And that's all I have.
I noticed he did not shaking his head in affirmation, but
Yeah,
very
we'll talk
smart.
about that
Okay. Please forgive me. I've got a few announcements. They're very significant to make. Sorry, Commissioner. If you could hold on for a few more moments.
I've got some coffee.
Yeah, he has lots of coffee. It is said that you are known by the company you keep. In a couple of weeks, one of our own will be joining an august company of Internet pioneers and innovators. At a ceremony in Berlin on August 3rd, Henning Schuzring, the FCC's Chief Technology Officer, will be inducted into the Internet Hall of Fame. Is he here? Please. This is just the second year that the Internet Society has recognized the accomplishments of people who design, build, and expand the Internet's growth and use around the world. And to give you a sense of what a high honor it is, I only need to mention a few names in this year's class. They include J.C.L. Lichtner. See, I need lunch too right now, so I apologize for the whose vision of globally interconnected computers when he was at MIT and then at DARPA laid the foundation for the Internet. Bob Taylor, who initiated ARPANET. Bob Metcalf, who invented Ethernet. Mark Andreessen, who co-authored the first popular browser. And Jimmy Wales, who founded Wikipedia. Our Henning is being recognized for his work in developing the key protocols that enable voice over the Internet protocol and other multimedia applications. These include real-time streaming and real-time transport protocols, which enable real-time transmission of audio and video over IP. There are a number of things that I will include. Henning, please forgive me. You're just such an awesome person and very humble, so you'll forgive me for truncating in some of this. But I will just say in some. Every time you make a phone call, participate in a video conference, or stream a video, it's likely that there's a little bit of Henning in that connection. So thank you very much. On behalf of the Commission, we congratulate you. It is an honor for you to serve with us, to have your considerable talents dedicated to solve the important issues that we face each and every day. Congratulations once again. Enjoy your time in Berlin and come back. Again, so awesome, an honor. Thank you. And I'm sad to announce the departure of two of our law clerks, Julie Thompson and John Ballou. Julie and John will be returning to begin their second year at the University of Texas and the University of Virginia, respectively. They had to leave, but they have been essential, diligent, and patient as our office made the transition to this acting post, and it was really great to have them on board. I wish them all the best and hope that they will stay in touch. Now, if my colleagues do not have any further announcements other than they want to either get pizza, chicken, or I'm not sure. Madam Secretary, if you would please announce the date for the next FCC agenda meeting.
The next agenda meeting of the Federal Communications Commission is Friday, August 9th, 2013.
Until then, we stand adjourned.
Do you want to join? Would you like to join? So we're going to go along the table, one question each. It's the usual format. If I could just ask you to introduce yourselves and state your publication or media outlet before you ask your question, please. And we'll start with Matt. Would you like to start?
Sure. I think Commissioner Clyburn, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Matt Schwartz with ComDaily. I have a question about E-rate and the thought about a national broadband target. Commissioner Pai earlier this week had been somewhat critical of the idea of a national broadband speed goal, calling it, quote, a one-dimensional national benchmark that eschews local autonomy and forces schools to, quote, skew their spending decisions to meet an arbitrary national target. I'm wondering if you agree with those views or if you have a different position, if you tend to support a national broadband target, and why.
Well, what I will say is I will start from a point in which we all agree. We all agree that it is time to modernize and revitalize this program. I am proud of the work we have done so far, and I am proud of what this NPRM will put forth. It seeks comments on a wide variety of proposals, including how to maximize cost efficiencies. There are a whole host of questions that are being asked and that the public, all stakeholders have an opportunity to weigh in on. But at the end of the day, the goal is simple, to improve efficiencies in the program, to increase broadband connectivity, and to streamline the program's management. So, that is clear. The target, it's very targeted, and we have an opportunity to get a lot of input from individuals interested in this item.
So do you have a position on national broadband target?
What I will say is after the comments are received from the general public, I will review and weigh all that and will make my decision in a comprehensive fashion.
Chairman Clyburn, I'm Monty Taylor with Tom Daly.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Pai mentioned that this was, he praised the commission for putting out the video competition report 2 years in a row. I was wondering what is different this year that you guys were able to get that done, and what do you think the most significant finding in the report is?
It affirms that there are increasingly a whole host of choices. There are many communities where individuals have 3 or 4 or more opportunities, 4 or more additional options in terms of programming. But what it also affirms is that in smaller and rural communities, those opportunities do not exist to that degree. So it's a very revealing report that, again, just looks at the state of play, but there's still some issues and some challenges in smaller rural communities.
Chairman Clyburn, Justin, good to see you both again. I am Tom Risen. I'm freelancing, and I have a question about the Spectrum Holdings review you started last year. Have you been? I understand you only have a 3-member commission right now, but have you been discussing potential revisions to the Spectrum Screen? And do you think you'd be prepared to announce new Spectrum Screen rules before you have a 5-member commission again?
We are moving expeditiously in all of our reviews. We are having internal conversations as it relates to that particular item and more, and there will be no slowdown as it relates to just interactions and decision making at this agency.
Hello, Chairwoman. Brooks Politico. First off, I just want to, I would have said this, but I was on vacation at the last meeting, but I think limiting us to one question is ridiculous. There are 5 people here. I think you could answer 10 questions. My question is, when will we see a prison phone item?
When will you see a prison phone?
Prison phone, yes.
What I will say to you at this time, when you were on vacation, we had a workshop that really brought to the forefront a lot of the opportunities and challenges we have before us. Staff is hard at work on putting forth, releasing an order and a further notice of proposed rulemaking, and soon, I know we will put forth an item for the American public for those, it's been a long meeting, for those 2.7 million children and their families who have at least one person incarcerated. So very soon, stay tuned.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sean Cavanaugh with Education Week. I know that one of the concerns Commissioner Pai raised was that if you raise the overall cost of the E-rate program, you're ultimately passing costs on through telecommunications fees on consumers. What makes you believe that the American public would support even a minimal increase in what goes on their phone bills to support the E-rate program, as opposed to saying the program is big enough, it has enough money to spend, we can get there through simply cutting costs and cutting wasteful spending?
Again, this is a review. This is a notice of proposed rulemaking that will take into consideration a whole host of comments and options and opportunities and proposals. So again, we're looking at a program that is connected this nation, connected schools and libraries, the most vulnerable of our citizens, our children, and those who use these learning centers. So again, after the information gleaned from the interaction is put forth, we will make a comprehensive decision on best practices and best ways forward.
Well, just to follow up on that, the Obama administration has supported a temporary increase. I think they've mentioned 5-year increase in the money flowing into the program. Would you support that?
This particular notice of proposed rulemaking, as you will remember, is influenced and derived from Chapter 11 of the National Broadband Plan. This notice of proposed rulemaking is broader than Connect Ed, and again, we will look at and with interaction from those who are interested in this particular item, take all of that into consideration and will render a decision at appropriate time.
Thank you, guys. Thanks.
May I say one thing that might be on one of on your mind? One of the items I mentioned early on that there were a number of key priorities. Brooks, you mentioned the inmate calling services, which is something that we're moving on. And again, that very soon we'll have steps towards a resolution as it relates to that. But another one is interoperability. And I just wanted to affirm at this time that my office continues to be engaged with all stakeholders on what is a commission priority. And as I speak, Michelle Ellison and her assistant are scheduling meetings in which we will facilitate between the various parties. I want to be clear on this. Whether there is an industry solution or regulatory solution, there will be a solution. Thank you.
You know, the Baltimore weather said the air is thicker than Ray Lewis's bicep. That's an actual weather report.
Good afternoon. Anyone have questions on the video competition item?
I do.
Monty, go ahead.
I'm Monty from Palm Daily. I was just wondering, as I asked the chairwoman, Commissioner Pai pointed out that this was the first time you guys have gotten it out 2 years in a row in a long time. I was just wondering what was different this time that let that happen.
What allowed that to happen?
Yeah.
There was a period of about 4.5 years in which the Commission simply didn't do these reports. When Chairman Janikowski came in, he began the process of catching up, and we've now completed the process of catching up. We did one report on several years, and now we've done a report on 2 years, and that means that we're now up to an annual cycle, and we plan to stay on that cycle.
Hello. I have a question about, as you recall, the provisions put in place on the Comcast NBCU merger about over-the-top video. How did that play into account when you were doing the reports, the safeguards for over-the-top video and the process they have to resolve if they think they can get the fair access after that merger?
There have been, as you know, a number of instances in which the conditions on that merger have been invoked, and we've dealt with some. Some are still pending at the Commission. I think statistically, they're not a substantial contribution to these statistics which relate to the whole industry, but they're certainly important instances.
Anyone else? Thank you.
I'm Trent Harkrader with the Wireline Competition Bureau on the E-rate item. Does that help?
Yes. I wasn't sure if I had the right folks with Education Week. A question, the proposed rules that come out will, and I apologize if this seems like a very elemental question, but will they have any kind of dollar amount attached to them in terms of what you're hoping to do in terms of the cost of increasing bandwidth and what that will mean in terms of telecommunications fees? Or how will that work in terms of what's put in the proposed rules?
If you're asking about, and I just want to clarify,
Yeah.
you're asking about the contributions that consumers make into the
Yes.
program.
Yeah.
The item will not have any specific numbers about that. There are going to be a ton of proposals in there about ways that we can modernize this program, and one of the issues on the table is are we going to grow the program? Right now it's capped by the FCC. There's also a ton in there about the way that we can achieve efficiencies within the current program. So there's not, to directly answer your question, there's not going to be any numbers about contribution increases or anything like that.
Let me ask, is it presented as a series of options for the Commission and the public to consider, or in terms of increasing the size of the program versus cost savings and efficiencies within the program?
Yeah, it's one of a few options.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you describe what those options are at this point?
I think when in my first answer, I think that kind of got to. We discuss. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of folks on the outside, a lot of stakeholders that we've been meeting with, who have talked about this is a program that needs to grow. It's stuck back in 1997. Mm-hmm. That is one of the options in this item, and this option does a lot of things, but it includes a ton of optionality. We also talk about, consistent with what the Commission has done in the other universal service reforms, we've talked about operating within the current program, whether it was the high cost reform where we imposed a budget, or the Lifeline reform where we talked about savings targets. There's a lot of discussion, a lot of ideas, and a lot of options in this item about working within the current E-rate structure and where can we find those efficiencies. Can we spend our money better? Can we improve the administrative aspects of this to lower the costs on the applicants?
Thank you. Hi, Matt Schwartz, Condaly. So you say there's a lot of options in the NPRM. Does it have any particular proposals that it's really driving towards, or is it more? Would you characterize it as more of an NOI with various divergent options? Pai's proposals, which he was pretty proud about in his comments, are in some ways kind of not in opposition, but go in a different direction than some of the earlier proposals. So is it something like we could adopt a national target broadband benchmark, or we could do the opposite? How does the NPRM deal with that?
That's a great question, because I promise I'm only going to say options another 6 or 7 times today, but there are a lot of ideas in this item, and it's appropriate for a program as big as the E-rate program that has gone as long as it has without an update, which is what these 3 commissioners up here are universally decided that we needed to do. There are lots of options, and there are it's to their credit that they've decided to take this first step. Did I get all of your question? I don't think I did.
What I'm kind of inferring from that is no, it doesn't really take a clear proposal on the direction it should go. It's rather very wide open at this point. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the item derives from the proposed goals that we talked about in our speeches today. The first goal being ensuring that schools and libraries have affordable access to 21st century broadband, making sure that the E-rate program is encouraging cost-effective purchasing, and then the part that we always love is improving the administrative efficiency of that. One of the nice things about having Commissioner Pai on the one hand and Commissioner Rosenworcel and the chairwoman so vocal about their interest in this is because you get these great ideas. And that's, it's challenging for those of us on the staff who are going to have to kind of mesh all those ideas together. But ultimately, it's going to be, whatever this commission looks like, it's going to be their decision. But I mean, there are a lot of ideas right now.
I'll just ask another question, but to make sure I understand the process, in the final rules then, there will no longer be options, there will be policy. Am I understanding the process correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, in the NPRM, does it lay out any particular, you mentioned goals, does it have, any principles that you're trying to achieve? I mean, Commissioner Rosenworcel has spoken about, 1 gigabit speed by the end of the decade and those sort of things. I mean, are there any aspirational goals or anything in there?
It's an FCC.
All aspirational.
Yeah, it's an FCC NPRM. There are going to be aspirational language in that. But we are proud about these goals. I mean, this is a program. GAO has talked to us both publicly and privately about identifying goals for this program. And, that's the first thing that this item does. And when you think about it, if you're going to reform a program like this, the first thing you want to do is say, what should the objectives of this program be, given all of the radical changes in technology and education?
Any more?
One more.
Last question.
Is there within the proposed rules I know we've heard a lot of talk about priority 1, priority 2 spending. Is there a reworking of that? Or is that, again, presented as just options? Or is it presented as this is the plan for reworking what's spent as priority 1 versus priority 2?
It's presented as options. I mean, when you hear, if you listen to what Commissioner Pai said, Commissioner Pai was suggesting that we do away with priority 1, priority 2. But that's, those are all the ideas that we're going to be taking into consideration as we move forward with this.
So, logistical question. Is the text out? When will it be out? And is there any ultimate timeline goal, like before the academic year 2014, to get all this stuff done?
There's no timeline. We would, very much at the staff level, I've heard the urgency from the stakeholders, and we want to operate as quickly as possible. I think we're going to get the weekend off, but then Monday morning we need to start thinking about, how to go on to the next step. I mean, it's the first step. It's a great step, but it's the first step, and we feel the urgency with this program.
Just really minor here, and this might be because I don't understand all of the ins and outs of the E-rate program. The E-rate program now is pretty much wireline based. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead. This is Lisa Home.
Yeah, so there are lots of ins and outs to the program.
Right.
The program is relatively technology neutral, so it provides support for wireline and wireless service.
You answered. That's what I wanted to. That's what I was trying to find out. Okay.
Internet access.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Anything on the STS item? Any questions? You don't. It's fine if you don't. That's fine. Or our CVA report. It's fine. We just want to make sure that we say.
I think I'm good on the CVA.
So just check back on that.
Okay. Thanks much.